Hello and welcome to Marvel Vision, a Marvel Studios TV show podcast brought to you by Cinema Sangha. My name is Devin Faraci. I am one of the hosts of the program. Joining me as he traditionally does.
My name is Derek Faraci, and I can't believe you need permission to be a nerd. How are you, Devin?
I am okay. We're going to have a packed intro this week, I think.
Are we?
Yeah, there's lots to talk about. For one thing, I went to Santa Barbara and I saw Horizon: An American Saga Chapter 2.
You did?
And first of all, let me tell the folks at home. So this was playing the Santa Barbara International Film Festival, and it was the I think it was the U.S. premiere. I think it played at Venice at some point, but this is the U.S. premiere. Like back when the Horizon 1 and 2 were supposed to come out in the same summer, I think is when that happened. And so I bought a ticket. It was $20 to go see it. I thought that was a pretty reasonable price for a opening night premiere ticket. That's pretty good. The entire cast was there. They came on their own dime. They took themselves to Santa Barbara to be there because they know this movie's never getting a real premiere. And this is the closest that they're going to come. And Quentin Tarantino was in the house. And Kevin Costner called him out from stage while introing the movie.
Give me some money, Quentin.
So it was pretty cool. I wrote about the movie. It's on the Patreon, www.patreon.com/cinemasangha, Sangha. I liked it quite a bit, but if you didn't like Horizon Chapter 1, guess what? You're not going to like Horizon Chapter 2. You're going to like it even less, I would say. The first one. That's my take on it. So, but when I got to Santa Barbara, I had this whole plan. I was going to go to Santa Barbara. I was going to see the movie. I was going to get a hotel room. I was going to write my review that night. And then I was going to, spend the night in Santa Barbara, maybe like in the morning, like check some sites out up there in the Central Coast and like have a nice time. I pull into Santa Barbara and I go, oh, it's time for me to find out where my hotel is, like to put it into Google Maps so that I could like get there. And so I open up I got it through hotels.com. So I open up my trip and the page says, get ready for your trip in 2 days. And it was like, Jesus Christ, I booked the wrong days for my hotel.
So you booked it for a Monday or
Sunday night?
A Sunday night. Okay.
Yeah. I was supposed to book it for the 7th. I booked it for the 9th.
Okay.
So, and then I had already passed the refund.
What was it? Point. Just for the 9th?
Just for one night. No, it was 9th to the 10th. It was one night. It was just one night.
Yeah. Okay.
I had passed the refund point and I didn't know what to do. So I was like, maybe if I go there, I can convince them to let me stay tonight and like we can just swap it. I wasn't supposed to be able to, like, again, the thing said no changes, no refunds after this certain time. And but I got in touch with hotels.com and they got in touch with the motel and they got my refund. And I had bought travel insurance, which I never do. But I was like, you know what, $10 I'm going to do it this time. And I thought maybe the travel insurance was going to maybe help me out. They refunded me the travel insurance too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. I had a very positive experience at hotels.com.
Wow.
Using their little app. Yeah, I was very surprised. I was very, very surprised. So, but I did not stay overnight. I drove right back home from Santa Barbara. Derek kept me company for part of the ride as I regaled him with information about Horizon Chapter 2.
Yes.
Probably never coming to a theater near you.
I just want to see it.
Kevin Costner's at the Super Bowl tonight.
He is. He's with Pete Davidson.
Which is absolutely... Imagine Pete Davidson.
Maybe you got any money?
Maybe that's what's happening.
Kevin Costner's passing a hat around the whole stadium. My name's Kevin Costner. I'm trying to make a movie.
But yeah, I really liked it a lot. It's if you watch Chapter 1, it's like I said in my review, it's less of the same in that there's like even less happening this time around than there was in the first one. But I thought it was amazing. I loved it. Like that's part of what I love about the first one. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like so that really like is a big plus for me.
Yeah.
So I got to do that. I got to see Mr. Kevin Costner and all kinds of folks. It was very exciting and it was very nice. Ran into Quentin Tarantino in the lobby. He was kindly signing autographs.
Very nice.
Yeah, it was good. Cool. On the way up there, I bought a snack. A road snack. You got to buy a road snack. You're driving for 2 hours or more, you need a road snack.
Sure.
And so I bought a Gatorade and a road snack. And the road snack I bought is this. It is
Snack Club.
Tahine watermelon rings.
Yeah.
They are unreal. They are A, really good, and B, they pack such a punch. On the way home, when I was getting kind of tired driving and towards the end of the drive, I would pop one of these in my mouth and I would be wide awake. Like,
it's just covered in sugar? Isn't that the whole deal with them?
No, it's covered in chili powder.
Oh.
It's super, it's not super spicy. It just has a really big hit up front. Like, it really just like punches you out. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. It's vegan, by the way.
Oh, there
it's
you go.
gluten-free, as it says on the back. So I can't recommend this enough. This snack club, it feels like a real gas station brand, right? That doesn't feel like a thing.
I mean, the name does not instill confidence. Snack club.
Yeah, but that's not the kind of thing like when you stop at like a Buc-ee's or like they just have like a rack of like off-brand snacks. Yeah. It's the exact same snacks, by the way. They just put it in a different bag, so it's off-brand.
Yes, yeah.
So I recommend
it's like club. Whatever the gas station company's own brand is.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like America's Finest Cola and stuff like that.
So I take it you did not watch the Super Bowl?
No.
We are at the half. We just finished the halftime on the Super Bowl as we're recording.
We personally, because we were playing in it. That's why I didn't watch.
That's why we were playing it. That's why the Kansas City Chiefs are currently 24-0. No, it's very bad. Like, it's a very embarrassing number right now. Although they might come back. But
a lot of people who paid a lot of money to have ads in the second half of the Super Bowl are very upset.
No, they're very excited, maybe because if the Chiefs can start, this happened, I think, a couple like during the Trump presidency, there was a team, maybe it was the Chiefs, that went into halftime with like 2 points and then came back and won the game. So you never know. Sports sometimes is magic.
I bet a lot of people are just turning off at this point, though.
People just watch. The thing about Super Bowl, they just watch. Like, it's not like anybody gives a shit about the Eagles, except people who are from Philadelphia or like the Northeast.
Apparently, a lot of people do today.
That's because people hate the Chiefs because they hate Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, and that's what Taylor Swift got booed at the stadium.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, I watched the halftime show, and it was Kendrick Lamar, and there had been a lot of controversy about this in advance because Kendrick Lamar's biggest hit of the year is "Not Like Us." Do you know this song?
Yeah.
And it's the song where he calls Drake a pedophile.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's crazy is that this is a great song. This is like not just like, oh, that's so fucked up. The song is great. It is just an incredible song. And like, once you hear it, it's like in your head. And like, it's just like, it's one of those songs that when they make a movie about the mid 2020s, that will be the song they play at the beginning to establish the time period. Like, it is
like
so
over the Paramount logo coming up.
Yeah, and like it'll come swooping into the city, and that'll be playing, and then like you realize, oh, this must be 2024. Like that's how iconic that song already is. And so there was a lot of controversy of who's going to play it or not, because Drake has sued his label, saying that the song is defamation for calling Drake a pedophile. By literally saying pedophile. The lyrics are certified lover boy, certified pedophile. You're trying to hit a chord, but it's an A minor, which is, by the way, unreal lyrics. That's really good writing. And he wrote it like 2 days too. That's the craziest part about it. But anyway, he played it, but he teased it like this, the whole show, because that's like a medley of songs. Yeah, he teased it. Samuel L. Jackson played Uncle Sam, who kept calling Kendrick Lamar ghetto. Which was like amazing. And then he finally plays it, but he didn't say pedophile. He just drops his voice. Oh. And I'm assuming Standards and Practices told him you can't say pedophile.
I would assume maybe his album company or whatever said, hey, like his lawyers were like, hey.
No, because we'll get to the reason why I know that's not the case. But before that, but when he said certified, he goes, you're trying to hit a chord, but it's just an A minor or whatever it is. The whole fucking Super Bowl crowd sings A minor. And this is made the most viewed thing of the year across the globe.
Yeah.
And Drake was called by the crowd at the Super Bowl a guy who hits on minors on the most watched thing on earth. I feel like he'd turn to dust. Like, if that happened. Like, that is so crazy.
That's a rough day.
But the reason why I know that his label didn't tell him to lay off was because there's a lyric where he says, hey, Drake. And he stopped and turned to the camera and had a big smile on his face and said, hey, Drake. And it was fucking unreal.
Okay. All right. Well, All right, there you go.
It was unreal. It was a very good performance, very good dancers, really, really great staging. Enjoyed it very, very much. And Matt Walsh, one of the right wing blogger guys, went to Twitter and said, "Why do they have this guy coming out here mumbling incoherently for 9 minutes? Nobody even knows who he is." And it's like, Matt, I'm sorry to tell you, but like, just like Not Like Us is like one of the songs of the last 2 years. Like, it's crazy.
I know that Matt Walsh is like a political commentator guy, but I will always just think of the comedian, right? Isn't that one of the UCB guys' names is Matt Walsh?
Is it Matt Walsh? It might be.
Right?
That's tough. That's tough to have the same name.
And he's who I always think of whenever somebody's like, fuck Matt Walsh. I'm like, he's a nice guy. Oh, you mean the guy who's on Twitter all the time being like, I don't like people of color. Like, okay, yeah, that guy, yeah. But the comedian guy,
the guy from UCB is pretty all right. Yeah. And then, of course, there are the ads. They're very bad this year so far. There was did you watch the Seal ad?
I did.
That's horrible.
It's my least favorite kind of ad or joke.
Which is what?
That it's all weird, and then at the end, somebody's like, this is really weird, isn't it?
I hate that.
Hey, guys, this is weird.
Did you see the ad for Tubi?
No, I did not.
In the ad for Tubi, people are born with hats that protrude out of their heads, like flesh hats. And I swear to God, and the flesh hat determines what you're into. And the main character of the ad is born with a cowboy hat, and he likes Westerns, but then he gets made fun of because all the other kids in his class have wizard hats because fantasy's really in. And then it's just nuts. It's just like ugly and gross and upsetting. And like, why? Who was like, I get it. His skull is taking the shape of a cowboy hat. And it's just horrible looking. So I don't understand some of this year. Very bad commercials in the Super Bowl.
Let's see. I'm on SuperBowlAds.com.
Yeah.
So I can see all the ads. So I can see which ones I've watched. I watched the Dunkin' Donuts ad with Jeremy Strong and the Fleck boys.
Boy, they just keep that one going, huh?
And Jay and Silent Bob show up in like one quick shot. I don't know if you saw that.
There's going to be like some kind of multiverse of madness for the Dunkin' Donuts ads. Like there's going to have to be like
what's amazing about it. I mean, the ad right off the bat kicks off like what happened to Matt Damon and Ben Affleck's like, we didn't have enough money. It's like so that's kind of funny. I appreciate that. But there's Casey sitting there. And then like also I feel like Kevin Smith showing up in the ad is Ben Affleck being like, clearly I'm single. I'm hanging out with Kevin Smith again. Because that's the only time he's hanging out with Kevin Smith is when he's not married. So you have that going on. And then Jeremy Strong comes out of like one of like what they usually have Gatorade in at football games.
Yeah.
On the sides, but it's just full of like coffee and beans, and he's just covered in like coffee grounds. And he's like, I'm getting into character.
Oh my God.
Very weird.
You know what? God bless everybody for making some money on that. When are they going to get Al Pacino back?
I really am shocked they have not done like a Dunkachino's thing.
Yeah, I mean, they probably want to. I'm sure Pacino doesn't want to, is my guess. I know that he's not like super duper, like he was very game to do that in the movie, but my understanding is he's like not like super duper.
Well, he's explained why he was very game to do that in the movie.
Yeah.
Because his accountant stole all his money. he was broke. Like he's talked about in interviews. He's like, I was broke. All my money was gone. I had to do something. So I did that.
Good for him.
So we got that. There's a bunch of ads for Meta glasses. With
I could not recognize Chris Pratt.
No, he looked very different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what did they do to Chris Pratt?
I think he's been losing the muscle mass, but he's not been gaining weight, so his face looks thinner. And then he's got the glasses. And
the glasses really do a bit. But you know what? I can look at Chris Hemsworth in the glasses, and that's Chris Hemsworth. I go, okay, I recognize that guy.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's so weird. It took me forever to look at it. I'm like, wait, this guy's very familiar looking. And then his voice, I'm like, that sounds like Chris Pratt. And at the end of the commercial, Hemsworth's like, Chris Pratt ate the banana. And I was like, oh my God, that is Chris Pratt.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. But they're in it, and they're like, hey, look, Meta making fun of like destroying art.
Yeah, it's really bad.
Yeah. And then let's see, there was a Doritos commercial with the UFO.
Did you watch any of the movie trailers?
Well, I was saving that for the
you said no, the non-comic booky ones.
I watched the Mission Impossible one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one I thought was pretty good, although you almost could make any Mission Impossible movie have the exact same trailer. Like, it's just not like, it's
I mean,
hard.
it is just full of shots from other Mission Impossible movies.
Some of it is, but some of it's
Yeah.
not. Like the thing with him coming down from the ceiling in part 1 that's in the trailer, that actually ties into this movie.
Yeah.
Like, he left behind, I think, the knife, and then that becomes a plot point in this movie,
Yeah.
which is crazy. That happened 25 years ago. It's like so insane. So insane. That's part of Mission Impossible's insistence that we remember what happened in these movies, and that we like care about what happened, and we don't.
Yes.
Nobody knows what the fuck is going on in these movies.
No.
And
Mission Impossible is consistently a movie where there are characters that show up. I'm like, have they been in these before? And
they've been in 6 of them.
They've been in every single one, as it turns out. Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, I really enjoy watching them. Don't get me wrong. I truly do enjoy watching them.
I've enjoyed every single one since Ghost Protocol. What was the 5th one? Whatever that was. I've enjoyed them all.
But yeah, it is crazy when they try to do continuity, like as if anybody's paying it. I have a friend who hosts like a really big Mission Impossible podcast. Yeah. They had Tom Cruise on.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I'm always like, who the fuck listens to your podcast? Like, I'm like, who knows what's happening in the world of Mission Impossible?
Is that what the podcast is about? Is like trying to figure out, like, all right, so Ethan was married? When did that happen? Who was he married to? One of these 4 women. They all look the same, and I'm not sure which one first showed up.
I watched the new How to Train Your Dragon trailer.
Oh, I didn't see that. That's not on SuperBowlAds.com.
They got a big dragon in it. That looks okay. Did you watch the Lilo and Stitch commercials?
No, I've been watching all these on SuperBowlAds.com, and he doesn't have those.
Those are really fun. The Lilo and Stitch is they have like the field. It's supposed to be the Super Bowl, and then like there's a problem on the field. Something has got out there, a cat or a raccoon, and then you zoom in. It's Stitch, and he's running around being a menace. Okay. And but it's like he's like a little CGI guy in the real world. And then they have 2 little mini trailers after that. One where he is on the beach, and it's the Disney princess castle made out of sand. And he comes and he crashes it, and he's like does like Godzilla shit. And then the second one looks like it's going to be the Lion King, but then instead of holding up the cub, they hold up Stitch.
Okay.
And so it's like cute. They're cute. They don't really tell you much, but they're obviously going heavy on how good the Stitch CGI looks. Yeah, because it does look very good. It looks very, very good, and it looks quite charming. And then there was a Jurassic World Rebirth trailer, but it was the same thing as the trailer that came out earlier this week.
Okay, well, that
did you watch that trailer?
Yeah,
I'm kind of excited about this one.
I'm not.
I mean, I get it.
I'm not excited by any of them since the first one. None. Yeah,
no. Yeah, I get that. But out of the Jurassic World franchise, this is the one that's the most interesting to me because one is just back to adventure in the jungle, which is all that I wanted. I don't want like scientific intrigue or like whatever they were trying to do in the last fucking movie. Like, I don't even. It was unbelievably bad.
I want another haunted house one.
That was very bad too. So it's just adventure in the jungle. I like that. But also they have, because they're on the test island from Jurassic Park, they have mutant dinosaur monsters. Oh, and I'm very excited. You can see one in the trailer. He's like behind glass. He's got like a human. It's like a big T-Rex. It has like a humanoid face.
Oh,
yeah, it's very cool looking. So I'm really hopeful about that. I'm really, really hopeful about that. I would like to enjoy that because I keep going to see these movies and I keep really hating them.
Yeah,
like desperately hating them. And but I still have so much goodwill for Jurassic Park that I keep doing.
I do not. The last one I didn't see the last one in theaters with the whatever it was in that one. Where everybody came back and they're like, everyone's back.
Yeah.
I didn't care.
That one was really bad. It was really terrible.
I think I watched it on TV.
Probably. That makes sense. The plot involves giant locust.
Yes, I did watch it on TV. Okay,
I was like, why the fuck am I watching a movie about giant locusts? It's a Jurassic Park movie. What the fuck?
Yeah, that was terrible. And the one before it was not very good either. But I did find it enjoyable that they were like, what if it ended in a haunted house? Try something
That's
new.
The one where they sold a dinosaur for like $9 million. And you're like, wait, that does not sound right at all. That sounds crazy.
That's very low.
Like you could buy a shitty house in LA for $9 million. But I thought that the trailer, the ads are not that great. And I actually like the Thunderbolts one, which we're going to talk about during the news, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
I like that one.
I'm looking. Yeah, none of these ads were good.
No, they're not good this year.
There's 2 different ads about facial hair flying around. I don't know if you saw one for Pringles and one for I forgot who the other one is. Little Caesar's Pizza.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Crazy.
There's one for some beer that's got Willem
Catherine
Dafoe
O'Hara.
and Catherine O'Hara. Yeah,
that's pretty crazy. How did that, that's like a machine just spit that out randomly?
That seems like if you told me AI created that whole commercial, I'd be like, yeah, all right.
It's so weird. It's such a weird. Was it like Michelob too? Is that the beer?
Yeah, Michelob Ultra.
It's just shitty beer too, on top of everything else.
Yeah,
not even a good beer.
No.
Ugh. There was the most amazing commercial tonight. Did you see the commercial for Ontario?
No.
The Canadian province of Ontario ran an ad.
Oh yeah,
and it's basically, please don't invade us or do a trade war with us. It really is. It's like your oldest allies just to the north, trading partners for generations. And it's like, we supply you with metals that you need for your bustling economy. And it was crazy. I was like, my God, they have to take out a fucking ad begging to not get invaded.
That's horrible.
Bad days, baby. Bad days.
Did you see the Barry Keoghan commercial?
No.
For Squarespace?
Oh, is he in that one? I saw
it's him riding a donkey through an Irish village, throwing computers through windows and going, Squarespace. I'm like, what is going on? I have no idea what the concept of this ad is, other than let's have Barry Keoghan show up and he's dressed like he was in what's it called? That movie?
Banshees of Inisherin?
Then Banshees of Inisherin, and he'll throw laptops through people's windows.
I'm going to say something really controversial. I know what the problem is.
What?
Is that it's all millennials running this shit now. And that how absurd, I'm so random kind of a thing is coming through in their creative. Yeah. And so it's just kind of not truly working. And which it never really did. I was never a huge fan of the millennial so random, not real absurdity. The Gen Z kids do really good absurdity. Yeah. A lot of these TikTok kids honestly do excellent surrealism.
They're like Monty Python level, some of them.
Yeah. But the millennials don't really, it's a lot of whatever. But people who had pizza as a personality, for the 2010s, that's who's now running these ad agencies. And so that's, I think, the problem. I think that's what I think it is. So to all my millennial listeners out there, I'm so sorry to throw your generation under the bus like this, but
well, you can explain the Barry Keoghan ad to me, because I don't get it.
It's random. LOL, it's so random. It's a doggo. He's a doggo. Oh, it's a random pizza. Epic bacon win.
I don't know what any of that means. I don't like it.
All right, you ready to talk about the news for the stuff that we actually discuss?
Sure.
So I think there's no more interesting ads. We're halfway through the show, so maybe there's more ads coming out. But
I mean, Marvel's supposed to have 2 ads, and
so there's a second ad we haven't seen. Yeah. The first thing I want to say up front, before we get into anything else about the news, you're probably going to have this. Do you have any of the dog show, the Puppy Bowl stuff?
No, they didn't show anything.
That's the thing. So they showed an image of Guy Gardner, not image, a little GIF of Guy Gardner.
Of him, this is the only bull I care about, or whatever.
And then they also have a new crypto where he's ripping apart the Puppy Bowl logo.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is such a huge mistake.
I agree.
It's unbelievable to me, what a huge mistake it is.
Yeah, I agree.
I get it if you don't want to do a Super Bowl ad. It's $8 million for 30 seconds. I think that's stupid. I think you want to do a Super Bowl ad. I think you want to fucking spend the $8 million or the $16 million to get a 1-minute ad. But to not even have something on the Puppy Bowl, which I think is fun, to do an alternative, because we all know this stuff lives online anyway, right? That's the deal. At the end of the day, it lives online. To have that alternative, I think would be really, really fun. And, but they just didn't do anything. It's crazy.
No,
it's so nuts.
What makes it crazier is that they did a whole lead up to it with James Gunn being like, hey, we're going to do a sneak peek. You
And then
did.
it's just they did. It's just the trailer again, but shortened.
Yeah, but like that's not a sneak peek. We already snuck that peek.
Yeah, I can't tell if this is Zaslav being like, fuck it, we're not spending money on this or what, but it's just really crazy to me to like see that. Like it is like Mission Impossible is like next year Mission Impossible is coming out. You know what I mean? Like, and then this is like July, we're not even going to talk about it.
I personally think it's I don't understand why any company spends money on Super Bowl ads, because you're putting out currently on SuperBowlAds.com, he's got 48 videos up on his, and he's missed a couple from what I can gather from what you've said.
Yeah.
And nobody's paying attention to the ads on the show. They're just going to watch them online. So
no, they pay attention on the show. I disagree. I think that the thing is that the ads, they become news stories themselves. Like if they're good, if they're strong, if you have the right celebrities or whatever, they become news stories themselves. So then what's going to happen is that you're going to see Yahoo and People and these things are going to have.
I'm talking about like a trailer for a movie. I don't think any of those ever stand out. You know, I mean, not for nothing. They did, Warner Brothers did a Super Bowl ad for The Flash. That didn't work out too well.
You're the guy that wants to have the Thanksgiving Day parade happen at the Super Bowl with the superheroes.
Yeah, but that's more like an event thing. That's like that's not just like here's a 30-second ad,
right?
When everyone's getting up to go get more wings or whatever. Like, that's a different deal.
I think the problem is that, especially because of the nature how this stuff worked 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it's become baked in that like your action franchises are going to have a Super Bowl ad.
Yeah.
And I think if you don't, like Superman doesn't, it feels like weakness, as opposed to like having a thing like where it's like, I think it'll help. I think it actually just hurts not to have it. Like, I think at the end of the day, it feels like Warner Brothers doesn't believe in it. That's what it feels like.
I think outside of people, like industry people, nobody gives a shit. Nobody's sitting around in like Peoria, Illinois, being like, well, there's no Superman ad. Clearly, that means they don't have faith in the movie.
No, so the thing is that it's more complicated than just people watching the immediate show or whatever. What happens is that creates how the buzz works. And then so now the buzz, when you show weakness, the buzz starts to become, this not good. They don't like it. They're hiding it. And then that becomes like a thing. What was, there were so many movies. Wow, what was the last one? I can't even remember. There was a couple of movies last couple of years where the buzz was really negative, and then people saw the movie and were like, oh, it wasn't that bad at all. And they weren't like glued to entertainment websites or whatever. They just heard from their friend at work. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the whole premise of how the internet buzz thing works, is that you don't have to necessarily be the person getting it, but you're going to hear it because you're going to be at a dinner and somebody's going to say, did you see the new thing for this? Or did you hear about Superman? Or did you whatever? And so when that buzz becomes negative, it can get really hard to pull it back. And so people end up not going to see movies because, good example is like Acolyte, where the buzz was toxic as hell.
Yeah.
And people didn't watch it. And then when people came to watch it, they go, this is actually really good. Everybody at work told me it was a piece of shit, but I watched it and I liked it a lot. And I think that's the problem I think negative buzz is more dangerous than positive buzz is helpful, frankly, in some ways. Do you know what I mean? Because it's very much easier to say to somebody, the nature of the culture is, oh, this thing sucks so bad. Like we want to say that to each other. Is a little bit less of like, this is the greatest thing ever. You got to see it. Or I'm so excited about this thing coming up. It's like, oh, you see that trailer? It was garbage. It looks like shit, man. And then you're just fucking tainted. So I'm not saying this is going to kill Superman, but I do think that it creates an image of weakness.
I think that is insanely goofy to say. I'm
sorry.
I don't buy the idea that people are going to sit around and be like, there was no Superman trailer. It must not be good during the Super Bowl. Bullshit.
It's going to be the articles. The articles tomorrow are going to say that. The
articles tomorrow are going to be, these were the best Super Bowl ads.
I'm telling you.
It's going to be Waka Flocka eating cheese for 30 seconds. He's shoved his head into cheese and, oh, isn't that funny? That's what it's going to be.
You pulled Waka Flocka out. That was very impressive.
Is that a person?
Yeah, Waka Flocka Flame. That's a real person.
No idea. No clue. I was just like saying something goof, like trying to think of like millennial humor. Waka Flocka. That's all that was. I must have heard of Waka Flocka at some point, and it's in my brain somewhere, but I don't know who Waka Flocka is.
All right, so what's our news this week?
This guy whose name I can't pronounce has been cast in Vision. I'm going to give it a shot. It's Ruardi Mullica.
He looks like Joseph Quinn. I don't understand why they cast a guy who looks just like the Human Torch in Vision. I legitimately don't get it. He looks exactly like him.
The
That would actually be kind of amazing because that actually would fit with the Vision. Like if they're, you know, I mean, that actually would make some weird sense. And we know he exists in the MCU because he's in the first Captain America.
Captain America, yeah.
So that is, I guess, possible, huh?
I guess so. That'd be interesting.
Are you looking at his picture? He looks just like Joseph Quinn. It's crazy how much he looks like him.
He does.
So
yeah, so he's been cast in Vision. I don't know as who. Nobody knows.
Good to know they're casting though. That's nice. Like that's again my general feeling that none of these things are going to happen continues. And so when something actually begins moving, I go, wow, that's pretty incredible. I'm very surprised by this.
There you go. Rob Liefeld opened up on his podcast about why he will no longer work with Marvel, and it has to do with the way he feels he was treated poorly during the lead up to the release of Deadpool and Wolverine. That he wasn't invited to the party, and they didn't like. You know, he reached out a couple of times, nobody responded. They told him to leave him alone, and he's upset about it. And I think he's right to be upset about it.
So, as somebody who's been to a number of premieres,
yeah,
it is crazy that he didn't get invited to the party. Like, it is insane. I have been invited to many premiere parties. I've been there with Rob. And you go to these premiere parties, and especially for the nerd properties, it's like the same group of like C-level celebrities that show up for a lot of these. So like it's always gonna be Seth Green's always gonna be there. Like anytime a comic book movie or a sci-fi movie has an after party, it's gonna be Seth Green is gonna be there. And so the fact that they didn't invite him is so nuts because that also cost them essentially nothing.
Yes.
To invite Rob Liefeld. Essentially nothing. And Rob is like a really huge promoter.
Yes.
And he only has positive things to say. So he's going to bust out to his followers pictures of him at the premiere party with the celebrities.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a little bit of a promotional stream.
Yeah.
It's just nuts to me. It's totally nuts to me.
It is. It makes no sense to me. It makes absolutely no sense. And his quote is Kevin Feige does not treat comic book creators well. We've seen this time and again. There was a part of me, I'm not going to lie, I was really hoping that when everything happened with Marvel and what's-his-face got kicked out, that some of this would shift. It looks like it hasn't. And that's a real bummer that they're still not treating the creatives well.
The thing is, they're never going to treat the creatives well financially. But again, to not invite somebody to the after party is just bonkers. It's straight bonkers.
Like apparently DC Warner Brothers treats the creatives much better than Marvel does.
That's because of Paul Levitz. And when he was there, he really instituted a great program that they said they've kept where you make real money on the characters that you create.
Yeah.
And so that's why that is. And I'm surprised that they've kept it, frankly.
And like not just like real money, like it seems like real money. Like Todd McFarlane spoke about how in the Stargirl TV show, they used a character he created for DC in the 80s that he forgot he created. And he got more money for that than he got for the Venom movies.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's insane.
I mean, I will never forget that I had to call Ed Brubaker and tell him they were making a Winter Soldier movie. That's his story, man. He ended up being in the movie, but when they announced it, he didn't know it was.
Well, he's talking about that. He said he's gotten more out of residuals for being in the movie than he got for using his story. So
part of the thing is that with Winter Soldier, they really double screwed him because they don't consider Bucky, the Winter Soldier, an original character.
Sure, but it's
considered derivative. No, believe me, I get it. Like, I'm not arguing against that. Like, I'm 100% on the side of the creatives, but I'm saying that's how he got double screwed on that. That this big character, they're like, well, we already had Bucky. Like, you just gave Bucky a new haircut.
And I wouldn't be surprised if that's part of how they do Venom. Is like, well, the symbiote suit existed before you, and so did Eddie Brock.
Could very well be the case.
So tough luck, Todd McFarlane.
That could very well be the thinking, which is, I think, bad thinking, but that could very well be the thinking.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Rob Liefeld very upset, understandably upset, and I think it's some BS that they treat their creators this way.
Agreed. Rob deserves better. And again, this is not even a case of like, there's like some arguments about like Deadpool's creative history that we're not going to get into. But even beyond that, like, it's just like he's a guy who's attached to that character in a big way. Invite him to the fucking premiere party. Like that's it.
I mean,
like
you cannot argue that he is one of the creators of Deadpool,
and he's local.
He's local. Yeah, he's like right down the street. Like,
yeah,
he'll fly himself out.
It isn't like they're flying him in. You know what I mean? Like,
but if like you had to, he'd fly himself out.
Yeah, but he would drive. I've seen again Rob at many LA premieres. Excuse me, and he drives up from Orange County.
Yeah.
So, and also by the way, I don't think Rob drinks.
I'm pretty sure he doesn't.
Yeah, so he's really a cheap date at the premiere party because he's not even gonna, like. They invited me when I was an active alcoholic. Boy, I was fucking costing them money. I did a thing for Punisher. War Journal, and fucking a couple of us were hanging out with Ray Stevens and just demolished the open bar. I mean, like fucking Ray Stevens could knock it back.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, that man, yeah. I mean, I was not as surprised as everybody else when he died.
Yeah.
I was like, oof, that's what
happens. I guess one thing that Liefeld had asked for was to have his name in the opening credits, not at the end credits. That he felt like the creators should be credited in the beginning of the movie.
I don't disagree. That's a pretty good
100% agree. 100% agree. He pointed to Superman.
That's how they do it there.
Yeah. I think they do it with Batman as well now.
I think so.
That they put Bob Kane and Bill Finger at the beginning. Yeah. He didn't ask for anything like outlandish as far as like everything he said. Like there was nothing where he was like, and I demanded like 30% of the profits or anything. Like, no, he was like, hey, I'd like to go to the party. I'd like to have my name credited. Like,
even if he had asked for 30% of the profits and had a big fight with him about it, you still invite him to the party anyway.
Yes.
That's the thing, because the optics are what's important. And if you're the company, you just grit and bear it that Rob Liefeld's going to be at your party. Like that's it at the end. Like, and again, also Rob's not like an asshole. Like Rob's not going to go and make a big fucking scene.
No.
And so out of all of the guys to fuck with, that's the one I just understand the least.
Yeah. One thing I'm really interested in with Liefeld is he seems to have come out ahead much more than most creators do when they create characters from Marvel or DC in terms of like what his royalties are. So either Rob Liefeld at age like 17, 18 was real smart about business, or somebody close to him was and was like, hey, let's look over these deals.
I think that he's a business-minded guy. I don't listen to his podcast all the time, but I listened to an episode of his podcast where he had some retailer on, and they were talking about retailer stuff. And Rob was like really fluent.
Oh, he knows his shit.
Like, the business end of it. Like he was very fluent in it. Not just like this is going to be popular, but like the fucking nuts and bolts of like owning any kind of a store that sells goods. Like he seemed to really. So remember though, he did those Levi's commercials when he was young. Like he was very entrepreneurial from a very young age.
Yeah. But like I'm really interested to see if like he's writing an autobiography, and I imagine he'll be covered in that. And I imagine I'll read it because I'm very interested in a lot of things from him. Because I mean, he's a very interesting figure in comics history, and but like that he made this deal where he is really worked out very well for him.
Yeah.
With, not just Deadpool, but like a Cable and Domino and all these different characters. And then on DC, he created a couple of characters that he seems to get paid pretty well for as well. And it's like, he figured it out. He figured out the trick. I don't know what it was that nobody else figured it out. But like him and Bob Kane are the two guys in comics who were ever ahead of the publishers. And it's pretty impressive.
All right. What else we got?
The Thunderbolts trailer came out.
What'd you think?
I liked it. It was a good trailer.
It was a really good trailer. And one of the things I liked about it was that it directly addressed the complaints about the movie in advance.
Sure.
Because Elaine is like, so we just punch and shoot people? Like we don't have any superpowers? And that's been always the complaint. Like, why do you have a team of just guys that shoot? Like this seems stupid. Yeah. And I think that within the context of the trailer, the premise that they have to be the guys that take on Sentry and they don't have, like that's not their fucking thing. That's actually very interesting dramatically. That's an interesting story. So I like that a lot. I like seeing Val in front of Congress talking about how the Avengers aren't around anymore. I mean, I think that it's becoming clearer and clearer that they're the Avengers at this point, or she wants them to be the new Avengers or whatever. And that's becoming, there's a very obvious shot of Avengers Tower in this one.
Yep.
Which we knew if you had been paying attention in previous trailers, but this time they have a real exterior shot that you just can't miss it.
Yeah.
And then, so like, I think that was really excellent for me. And you know what? I know that we're all complaining about how Marvel's characters are like snappy or whatever, but I kind of like that in an action ensemble. Like, I like that.
Here's the thing I saw in this trailer that most made me excited. There were moments in this trailer where they're not just being snappy, they're enjoying each other.
Right.
You know, there's a shot of Bucky and Red Guardian in a truck, like laughing hysterically. And it's like, oh, if they're going to have a good time together, that makes it way more fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, if they're just being like jerks to each other the whole time, no fun.
I mean, they're obviously going to butt heads. There's that shot of Yelena unloading an entire machine gun clip on John Walker.
Yes. But even then, he's like, "Oh, it's me, it's John," and she's like, "Where were you?" And he's like, "Where were you?" So like, she wasn't shooting at him because she was angry at him. She was shooting at him because she thought he was a guy they had to fight.
It feels like traditional action comedy is what it feels like.
Yes.
And that's like a real genre. That's like a genre we all know and conceptually many of us love.
Yeah.
The stuff with the Void doesn't look that great. It does give me PTSD, but I guess that's what it's going to look like. I mean, like, because he's just like we just see his big dark smoke thing.
Yeah.
And I don't love superhero movies with big dark smoke things, but we also do see the Sentry has a cape on.
Yes, he does.
Did you catch that?
I did.
They don't show us him in his costume.
No,
he's like
silhouette. They show him silhouetted. Yeah. And he sees blonde hair at one point.
Yeah. I think they're trying to hide the fact that Bob is Sentry.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're trying to do there. Although anybody who's read a comic book knows that that's who that is. But yeah, so I liked it a lot. I'm looking forward to it. The tone seemed really nice. And again, like, just them addressing that whole thing and being like, we know this is a dumb team, but what makes it fun is that this is the wrong team. That's actually like, we did that on purpose. Like, we wanted them to have an enemy that they are not qualified to take on. So that's, I think, really cool.
Yes. Yeah. No, I thought it was a very good trailer. Much better than the previous trailers. I'm looking forward to it.
What'd you think of the poster?
The poster's fine. It's all right. You know.
It really has like a real sense of like, I made this over my lunch break.
Red Guardian should not be in front of the Wheaties word because he's got like a close shaved head, but he's got like stubble. And you can see that it's just gray at top of his head because you can't. It would take a billion years to Photoshop that correctly. Like,
I like that you called it the Wheaties word. That makes it sound like a slur. He said the Wheaties
word. The Thunderbolts, their title, but it's like,
no, I know.
Like
it's just, right? It's funny to say the Wheaties word. It's just
like, I don't know why I said it that way.
I like that. No idea. I might put that in my vocabulary now.
The Wheaties word.
He said the Wheaties word. I don't know. He's canceled now.
Well, we're both positive. Finally got Brad Pitt he said the Wheaties word.
we're both positive on this. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, shocking.
Good for us.
We're growing.
And there might be there's probably definitely a trailer in the second half. Maybe it already aired while we're recording. We've been recording for 45 minutes already. So
I closed.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Let's not find out.
SuperBowlAds.com.
When we're in the break between segments, if there's a new one, we can pick it up in the next segment at the beginning and just mention it. So
yeah.
Any other news?
That's all I got.
I had something else and I can't remember what it was. So
look at Guy Gardner.
Yeah, that just, I feel like they could have done that better. I'm like very disappointed, frankly.
Yeah, it's pretty lackluster.
Oh, here's the other thing. Thunderbolts is being scored by Sun Lux. And they're like an experimental rock band, and they did Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Okay.
So that's like pretty cool. That's like very cool. That's a very cool choice. Because I think that a lot of the Marvel stuff is maybe not that interesting. So
I'm trying so hard to remember the music and Everything Everywhere All at Once. I can't. So.
Also, Nate Moore, producer, confirmed that Sabra is Israeli in Captain America, but she's not Mossad. She works for the U.S. government.
So
I don't know what that means. people will still be angry. But yeah. But that's because there was a lot of back and forth about what they were doing to her and how much, they were gonna change her.
Yeah.
With a million reshoots that they did.
Yeah. And then they were like, Trump won. Fuck it. That's what they said it
on. The big rumor from Jeff Snyder is that first of all, he backs up a couple of rumors that Kitty Pryde's going to be in the X-Men movie.
Yeah.
Kitty Pryde and Gambit, and he says that they are talking to Julia Butters right now.
That's not a real person.
She's the kid from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That name isn't real.
And she's also in The Fabelmans. She plays one of the sisters.
Okay.
But I mean, she's in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Everybody at movies like, that kid's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So she's obviously grown up a bit since then. But she's age appropriate.
Unless she's like the Winter Soldier and they just
put her in a freezer.
Yeah. Wake her up like baseball level.
I'm looking at pictures of her that are more recent, and she looks like a grown-up person, more or less, which is crazy. That just seems insane to me. Like, this just doesn't seem right. Yeah, this is from May 2024. I'm looking at her Halloween Horror Nights, and she's like a big person. Like a tall person, like a person who's human-sized and not a little tiny moppet sitting in a rocking chair anymore.
Julia Butters?
Julia Butters, yeah.
That's a weird name.
It does sound like a fake name. It does sound like a comedy name, like big time like a comedy name.
Like, I just instantly think of South Park.
Yeah. Well, she's maybe related to Butters. Could that be the case?
Maybe.
But that's pretty cool casting. If Gambit and Kitty Pryde are going to be in it, then I think what we're looking at is X-Men 97 as opposed to any traditional early team makeup. Yeah. That's my guess, that they're going to do an X-Men 97 team.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I don't necessarily love it, but it makes sense.
Sure.
So, because there's a bunch of X-Men that I would love to see get the real treatment, who haven't fully gotten the real treatment.
Yeah.
Like Colossus has never gotten a good go at live action.
No.
I mean, I guess in Deadpool we could argue, but like that's not a good go. I don't think.
No.
Predicated on the idea that Colossus sucks.
Yes.
What's crazy is they don't do that Colossus is a pedophile.
No.
Which would be the modern take on that character now.
Yes.
Because he falls in love with 15-year-old Kitty Pryde when he's like 20 or 19 or something like that.
Yes. But you know, not everything needs to be a joke. I guess.
Movies. I'm just surprised because the Deadpool movies do make everything a joke.
Yes.
That's why I was always surprised about that. So then I guess that's all the news that's fit to print. Do we have questions this week?
Maybe.
From our beloved listeners and viewers?
I don't know. Do we?
This takes you by surprise every single week.
I know, it's really bad.
This is like how I used to be with the jokes. Like I would just forget that we did the jokes and I would try to throw to the next segment and you'd be like, no.
Okay, here's Jason King. Devin, you were my favorite guest on the X-Files podcast. I'm wondering if there were any episodes you would have loved to talk about that you didn't get a chance to. Derek, were you an X-Files fan? And if so, any favorite episodes come to mind? You can go first. Although my answer is probably going to be more boring. Yes, I was a fan. And Jose Chung's From Outer Space is obviously my favorite episode.
Yeah, that's probably the one I like to talk about the most too, because I think it's the most interesting episode. And I would like to talk about the real UFO lore that is used, because the X-Files did not use a ton of real UFO lore. They kind of made a lot of their own stuff up. And Jose Chung is definitely heavily influenced by, at the time, actual, stories of the Men in Black and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, but I would talk about any episode of the X-Files. I think they're all worth talking about. The one that I might want to talk about is the one where I think it's called Quagmire, where they get stuck on an island. There's a sea monster.
Yes.
The alligator, and it kills Queequeg. But Mulder gives this whole speech about how he doesn't understand why people who are disabled get an award for racing or climbing a mountain. Why can't he get an award for getting up in the morning and tying his tie and stuff like that? I'm like, oh my God, this television program is speaking directly to my soul. Like I'm not begrudging anybody their awards, but like I would like the world to acknowledge like the amount of effort that it takes me just to get out of bed in the morning. Like I really would like that.
Yeah.
So I've always appreciated that one.
Yeah, that was a very good episode. There are a lot of really great.
There's so many good episodes of the X-Files. Yeah.
Right, Home is a great one. Like,
I mean, but the thing is with the X-Files, even a non-name brand episode that everybody like talks about is going to be good to talk about.
Yes.
They're all worth talking about. Every single one of them.
One of the most interesting things about X-Files, and X-Files is one of those shows I'm always like, hey, I'm going to rewatch X-Files. And then I'll get through like the first season and half of the second and then get bored and move on. Not because the show's not good. It's just a matter of like, oh, there's 22 episodes each season and it's Monster of the Week. You kind of get bored of it after a while. And probably when I finish my Quantum Leap bedtime show watch, I'll do X-Files. I'll try X-Files again. But one of the things that I'm amazed by is how early into X-Files it is clear that like they start making the joke of Scully being like, what, Mulder, you're going to tell me that it's a alien race of man-eating cockroaches? And he's like, yes, Scully, that is what it is. Like, they're doing that like halfway through season one. Like she's already like, I know you're going to spout out some weird crap to me, so let's just get to it. And I like that they go into that right away. And also their relationship is much funnier than I remembered when it was originally on.
It's very funny. The chemistry is unreal between those two, and so that goes such a long way.
Yeah,
maybe the one episode I wouldn't want to talk about is the episode with the killer ATM. And the killer pager, but even that's pretty good because like the ATM's like, go kill your boss, and the guy goes and kills his boss. Go suck your own dick, and then but yeah, I think even the bad ones are worth talking about. I think they're all interesting.
At least up to a certain, like, I quit watching the show some point not long after Duchovny left.
Right.
I was like, the show, like, I'm not, like, I wasn't enjoying it before he left. It kind of started falling apart. And then when he left, I was like, what's the point? And then I never finished watching all of it. And then I watched the first of the new seasons.
Yeah.
And that was it.
I watched the first season of the new seasons, the second, but there was such, I don't even want to say hit and miss. There was like good stuff, and then there was just atrocious stuff. It was very, very bad. But you know what? I'm used to it because the second X-Files movie is so horrendous.
Oh, it's horrendous.
So I'm really like, as far as my X-Files fandom, like I can withstand anything if I can make it through that movie. And that was the movie I did the junket for, and I was so excited to meet them all. And then I went to go see the movie the night before. I was like, fuck this.
That's rough.
Yeah, so
that's rough.
Yeah,
sorry.
All right, what's next?
Next is Matthew Daniel saying, around the release of Age of Ultron, I remember Devin talking about how the design and appearance of Vision was very comic book and pretty unlike anything we'd seen in the MCU to that point. In that same vein, what are your favorite true to the comics choices or moments in the MCU since then?
Good question. They've gotten more comfortable with having characters not just in tactical gear. So that's been like a plus. I think that Ms. Marvel's not fully true to the comic in terms of her look, but I think it's pretty close, and it's a pretty good transition.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. I'm trying to think what else.
Think for me, as much as I don't like Thor Ragnarok, I appreciate that it is the most Jack Kirby looking movie.
Yeah.
That they really went all out with the look of it.
Yeah, I went and I visited that set, and I got to walk around the sets, so the city sets from that movie, and it's so Jack Kirby. It's like crazy, like the stuff that like you just glimpse in the background, but when you're on the set, it's like a 20-foot tall wall that's covered in Kirby orbs and crackle and pipes and shit like that. Yeah. And it's like, wow, that's fucking crazy, and all that's colors really cool. And stuff. Yeah, I know that's actually a really good answer. I'll tell you the truth. I'm pretty
good answer. I'm great.
I'm pretty excited about the look of Galactus.
Yeah, I'm hopeful for that.
So
I'm hopeful for that.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's go with. Oh, that's for Bad Batch. We're not going to go with that one. That's a long one. I'm going to have to read it before we answer it so that I make sure I don't totally stumble over it too much, so we'll have to wait on that. Sorry.
That one goes in the next episode, Ben.
Uh,
Next episode when Derek also forgets that we did this segment.
Okay, here we go. This is from Jordan Barnes. And he says, I've been meditating for 10 years pretty much every day. I've recently gotten to the point in my meditation practice where it has become routine and almost a mundane feeling. I find myself stopping early more often and not feeling as centered afterwards. And in general, I lack the same motivation I used to stick to it. Devin, I'm wondering if you've ever experienced a wavering of your motivation to practice spiritual activities like meditation. If so, what did you do to overcome it? Have you ever had a teacher impart any wisdom on the topics that you might be willing to share? There you go.
Yes, I'm currently in the middle of one of those right now, actually. And so the truth is, you don't overcome it. It just is. And so that's you don't make an effort to overcome it. Because the whole premise is not making an effort, right? So the wisdom that I got was that practice means coming back to it again. That's the thing we do in meditation is we come back to the breath. We recognize that the thoughts are going to come, that we're going to try not to be distracted by them, but they're going to come and we will end up going, what's for dinner? Where did I put my car keys? But that's going to happen. That always happens to everybody. But you come back to the breath, and that's the practice, is returning to it. And it's the same thing when it comes to losing your motivation or whatever, is that the practice is coming back to it, and you will come back to it if you want to, and if when you're ready to. One of my teachers told me that as long as you're thinking about coming back to it, you're still in the practice. Like as long as it's a thing that is part of your, for lack of a better term, desire, that you want to get back on it, then you're still in it. And that you're not out of it until you've like gone like a year and go, wow, I haven't thought about meditating once. So that's the thing. So don't try to overcome it. Experience the time that you're experiencing where you just don't have the motivation. That's totally okay. Everybody gets that. Monks leave the monastery because they hit that eventually sometimes. And just, be prepared to go back when the time feels right. I struggle a lot with the idea of being kind to myself and letting myself go. This is my big struggle. Is like, well, if I give myself grace on this, does that mean I'm just not going to try my hardest because I know that I don't have to because I'll feel good about it anyway? And that doesn't mean that you just don't do it anymore. It means that like you don't beat yourself up about not doing it, and that you are open to the idea of doing it again or getting back more regularity. And that's just the deal. So, I mean, that's what it all comes down to. Derek, do you have any thoughts on that topic?
Nope. Don't meditate.
Have you ever meditated?
No.
Wow.
No.
Wow. It's very easy. It's very easy.
It sounds like it's not. You're telling me you got to keep practicing it.
Oh, you always practice. So you never, you never get it right. It's always a practice.
And it's not easy, is it? If you never get it right.
Well, the good news is nobody gets it right. Not even the Dalai Lama's got it right.
Although there's one thing you said where it's like you accept that you're not gonna be good at it. It's like that's my whole life. I got that part down. I'm done with that. That's good to go.
All right, you ready to talk about the next?
I have one piece of personal news I want to
What's that?
I have given up watching Daredevil.
Oh wow!
I made
what season?
I made it 4 episodes into season 2. And I gave up. And I'm going to tell you why I gave up.
Why'd you give up?
In Daredevil season 1,
yeah,
Foggy finds out that Matt is Daredevil.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a big argument about it and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't talk to each other for a while. And it's causing problems at Nelson and Murdoch.
Okay.
And Karen's very upset by it. And then they start talking to each other again, blah, blah, blah. And at one point, Matt says to Foggy, has Karen ever asked you about like all the bruises I have all the time? And Foggy says, yeah, she's asked me about it. And he says, well, what have you told her? And Foggy says, I told her you're an alcoholic. And Matt's like, well, that makes things tough for me. He's like, well, what do you want me to tell her, right? The next episode, they're all hanging out at a bar together, drinking. And I feel like the way the characters are portrayed, Karen would be like, we cannot go to a bar. Matt is an alcoholic. We have to get him help. Because if somebody so much as like sneezes, Karen in every episode is like, we have to get this person to a doctor who knows what they have. We have to make sure everything's okay. But she's like, well, he's an alcoholic. I guess I'll go get drunk with him. Like it just did not like they just ignored their characters.
I mean, a lot of people would just go to the bar,
But
but you're
that's not
right
her
about these
character.
characters. So I
Yeah.
agree, and I also feel like in a dramatic television program, when a character lies like that, and then the next episode they go to the bar, that should be like we have been set up to believe that's a setup. Like so she's going to bring it up at the bar.
Not only do they then go to the bar, at the bar, Karen is like, by the way, I'll fuck you whenever you want. Like, she's into it, I guess. Maybe she's into the whole deal. I don't know.
She'll fuck the alcoholism out of him.
Yep. But it's like, I was like, what is going on? Like, and ever since that happened, and that was in like towards the end of season 1, I was like, ah. And then season 2, there was like one good episode that was essentially just the Punisher. And I was like, that was a good episode. And then it went back to everybody else. I was like, oh, this is terrible. And I just couldn't take it. I could not deal with it. So,
yeah, I mean,
the end of that.
Are you just going to read the Wikipedia page?
I don't even know if I'll do that. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know. I just could not deal with it anymore. Like I didn't watch throughout most of the week, and then like I was like on the weekend I'll catch up on the weekend, and then I was like I just want to watch the Spider-Man movies. I don't want to watch this.
Is that what you watched this weekend?
I watched 2 of the Spider-Man movies. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I watched some other stuff. But yeah, I started watching Paradise on Hulu.
I watched the first episode and I was like, I'm not going to do this.
It's not great, but I really like Sterling K. Brown. I think he's a really good actor. I think he's doing a good job in it.
I like him too. I just feel like I don't like the premise. Like I don't care about the premise.
The premise is the main thing I'm waiting for is someone to explain how James Marsden is in his second term when he's like 23 years old.
He's not. James Marsden's in his 50s.
I know, but he looks so young. He looks so crazy young. And I'm like, there's no way this guy's president. I'm sorry. I just don't buy it. I do not buy it.
Yeah. Yeah, I watched the first episode and I was like, okay, I'm going to give it a shot. And then they revealed the big twist at the end, like what the premise is. And I was like, oh, this is just not that interesting. This is just not that interesting.
Yeah.
And I just don't care. Like that's the thing. At the end of the day, I don't care. And I know one of the big mysteries, I haven't watched anything past the first episode, but like how did things end up like that is obviously one of the big mysteries. I don't care. Like when they talk about it and being secret about it, I'm like, who gives a shit? So no,
I don't disagree. I don't. I also watched the first episode of Interior Chinatown, which was very good.
I heard it's very good.
I enjoyed that. I got to keep watching more of that because I enjoyed that.
All right. Now you ready to talk about the next 3 episodes of Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man?
Sure.
Let's do it. Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man Season 1, Episodes 3, 4, and 5, Secret Identity Crisis, Hitting the Big Time, and The Unicorn Unleashed. We got a lot ahead of us here.
There's something we didn't talk about last week.
What's that?
That I want to talk about this week.
Yeah.
I love the opening credits.
Oh my God, I love them too. I love the song. I don't ever skip it. I listen to it the whole time, all the way through.
Yeah, it's great.
It's so good. It is so good.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, big fan. I actually had a note to myself to talk about this episode because we did not talk about it last time.
Yeah.
I watched these 3 in a row basically, and I just watched that intro every single time, every half hour. I was like, happy to do it. Do it.
It's a great song. It's a great opening sequence. It works wonderfully.
We're going to try to run through this because we got 3 episodes to talk about. And I don't want to do a 3-hour recap episode. So we open with the cliffhanger from last week. Norman Osborn knows that Peter's Spider-Man.
Yes.
Peter tries to lie, but it does not work out. And Norman's like, don't worry, man. Like you're secret safe with me. I want to work with you. At one point, Norman says, this is a terrible lie. You should have said you were friends with Spider-Man. And that's Peter's line in the comics is that he's friends with Spider-Man. And that's why he always gets his Spider-Man pictures. I thought that was really, really good. I thought that was a nice little nod. I talked to you between episodes in the real world, and I told you that I had read the prequel comic for this.
Yes.
And there was information in the prequel comic that the show had not given us yet, but the show gives us some of it here, which is that we then go to Peter and Nico. They're playing video games in her room, and we learn that she's a foster kid.
Yes.
And in the comic, it's clear that she's a
foster kid. I think it's very important who she's living with.
Who?
The woman's last name is O'Hara. she appears to be Hispanic.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if that was the deal. Yeah, that I wasn't 100% sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that is. She's living with I guess the the grandmother of Miguel O'Hara,
Yeah,
aka
I mean,
Spider-Man 2099.
yeah, that very well could be the case. I was curious if that was just like a yeah, I mean, it could be just like a nod as opposed to like an actual.
Yeah.
There is so many fucking nods in these episodes. It's unreal. Like, and I think they all work. I don't think any of them feel like they're like show stopping. But in the comic, we learn that she is from LA, that she's a foster kid and she's from LA. In the comic, the comic picks up right after the opening scene of the first episode. So it takes place in between him getting his powers and where the show picks up with him as Spider-Man.
Okay.
So it's his earliest, like he's discovering what his powers are in the comic. And we also learn in the comic that Uncle Ben died in a hospital from a disease. And then it took a long time. So I'm going to guess it's cancer. Because there's a bit where Aunt May is like, you got bit by the spider and passed out. We should take you to the hospital. And Peter's like, Aunt May, you've had enough hospitals with Uncle Ben. I don't want to make you go to a hospital again. And she says, your Uncle Ben would be so mad if you died because you didn't, because of his experience in the hospital. So those are the two big pieces of info that we got in. Also, the comic introduces Silvermane.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And they try to explain why he's called Silvermane, and it's because he's a gangster who one of his legitimate businesses is Silvermane hair products.
I'm sorry. What?
Yeah. It works. Actually, it really works in the comic. I actually like the comic quite a bit. It's available on the Marvel Unlimited app. I actually liked it quite a bit. It's a pretty good story. But I like that Silvermane's going to be showing up in the comic. I don't know if that means he will never show up in the show, or if, I mean, they're again revealing information in the comic that we find out in the show, so they're not afraid of doing that. So we do get that information here, and then Peter's late for his meeting with Norman Osborn, and he goes to meet Norman Osborn, and it's this fancy restaurant, and Peter's like, oh, I guess they were the first ones here because the whole place is empty, and Norman has just rented the whole place out. This is so they could talk privately, and he gives Peter the sales. Well, first, Peter eats everything on the menu,
yes,
which is good. I like when he like looks at the menu and is like looks at the prices and is like, I'll have a glass of water, please. A very standard comedy bit, but one that I think always basically works.
Yes.
And so anyway, Norman Osborn gives him the hard sell. It's like, I want to work with you. Like, I want to be your guy. I want to be your guy in the chair is what he basically tells him. And, this is part of where Peter is again trying to, like, it wasn't me. It's like, Peter, just fucking cut it out. It's so embarrassing. And he gives, he has all these ideas. Like, we can do this. We can put this in your suit. We can make your suit out of this material. Like, he's like standing up and walking around. He's very excited.
All I can think of throughout that whole sequence is in the corner is that waitress, and she's like, so that kid's Spider-Man? That's all I can think.
You know what? Like in like certain kinds of like movies, like the characters like this who had these secret dinners, they only hire like deaf people. That's the Kingpin thing from, right? Isn't that from Echo?
Yeah.
He only hires deaf people so that they can't hear what they're talking about at the dinner.
Yeah.
He gives Peter $1,000 check. This is,
he says for the day.
For the day, yeah, that's pretty. Yeah,
is he getting paid $1,000 a day for this internship?
He could be.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. Well, they need it because we had seen that Aunt May is getting Uncle Ben's stuff together to sell on eBay.
Yeah, and he does not give her the check.
And we also see that she got a bunch of past due bills on the table.
Yes,
Peter takes.
Not for her. I got a grand.
Tough shit, Aunt May.
Yeah, so no, I do want to go back during the dinner. He says he's talking about getting the powers, and he says they should have gone to someone who could have been the next Captain America instead of some kid from Queens, which made me wonder if how well known is Captain America in this world? Like, do people know that he's Steve Rogers or not?
It's the MCU.
Yes, but it's slightly different though.
Yeah, but I'm going to guess that most of those kinds of touch points are going to be exactly the same.
Yeah.
Because Civil War happens next episode.
Yes. Yeah.
So my guess is that it's essentially exactly the same. It's pretty fucked up that Civil War happens next episode and Spider-Man's presence had no impact on it whatsoever.
There were two things throughout watching these 3 episodes I thought of, and that was one of them. Was like, I guess Spider-Man not being there doesn't change anything. That seems weird. And then the other one I was thinking was like, where's Ned? Like, I didn't get the feeling from the movies that he met Ned in high school. I felt like he'd known Ned for a long time. So I don't know where
It's
Ned
not
is.
clear. He might have. It's not really clear.
No, they never say anything in the movies to specifically state. That was part of the reason why I was like, I'm going to watch Homecoming because I want to see if
Right.
they say anything about when him and Ned met. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to watch Far From Home, and I haven't watched No Way Home yet. But
I think because we pick up with Peter in Civil War late in his freshman year, it's
yeah,
very possible they've just been high school friends.
it's very
Especially at that
possible.
age, kids become fast friends. I mean, him
Yes.
and Nico have become very fast friends, and they
Yes.
just met.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
it doesn't make a difference anyway because he gets a new guy in the chair anyhow. So Aunt May is selling all this stuff, and Peter takes Uncle Ben's camera. So we get the beginning of Peter Parker photographer, and we have
Yeah.
some scenes here of him also like testing the camera out and like doing all that kind of
And he
stuff.
starts looking like old photos on the camera.
Yeah, and he sees old photos, and it's very sad.
Which brought up the dangerous maneuver of that is if he goes too far and it's gonna be like nudes of Aunt May on there or something. And he's like, oh no.
I mean, this is hot Aunt May, so I don't know. Maybe it's good. We see some crooks, and they have some money, and they're supposed to place it into this garbage bin, and they think it's maybe stupid to do this, but they end up doing it anyway. And as soon as they do, the garbage bin grows legs and crawls up a wall.
Which I loved. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Like if you were trying to be cooler, it would have rockets maybe or something like that, or it would like sink
like
into the wall.
a wire comes out of it, it hooks to the top of the building, and like boop 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 just goes jumping up. I was like, that's great. That's wonderful.
There's a briefcase underneath, and it has that same logo that was on Butane's outfit. And so the thing is that we thought that was an Oscorp logo.
Yes.
Because it does look like the Oscorp logo from the movies.
Yes.
However, it's not. And they were definitely playing with us. That was definitely playing with us.
Well, it looks like the Oscorp logo that we see on the Oscorp building.
Yeah.
In this.
Oh, it does, doesn't
it? But it's like two of it instead of one.
Yeah.
Which makes me think they're going with the story in the Spider-Man games, the most recent Spider-Man games, where Otto and Norman had a company together, and then it fell apart, and Norman is now doing his own thing.
Could be. We go back to high school, and Lonnie Lincoln's continuing to be the best guy who ever lived, and he buys everybody lunch at the cafeteria. But his card gets declined, and he has to just eat an apple.
Yes.
He does not have enough money to feed himself. All his friends get fed, but he doesn't have enough money to feed himself. Everybody kind of recognizes that's kind of what's happening because they're like, hey, Lonnie, you need to eat more than an apple. But he's like, oh, no, I'm all good. He's trying to be really cool about it. Then he gets a phone call from his mom, and he has to leave. And he's like, hey, Pearl, can you drive me home like right now? Like, I got to get out of here. And so she does. And he doesn't want to talk about what's happening. And he's also like not happy that she's going to see where he lives.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is not how I wanted you to see where I live. This is not what I want. And when we get to his apartment in Harlem, or I guess they live like in a brownstone. It's a very nice place. There's a cop there. And I was certain this was going to be much darker than it was. And I'm glad it wasn't, because I was like, this is like, I don't know if I want his little brother shot dead by the cops. Like, I don't know if that's what I want to, like that, it's a good story or whatever, but like, I don't know that I need that.
Yeah.
In my life. But that's not the case. What happens is that his brother Dre got busted for hanging out with the 110th Street gang.
Graffiti.
Doing graffiti. The mom is so upset about graffiti. Like, it is like, it wasn't like he was mugging somebody or stealing something. He was doing graffiti. And I get it. Like, they're a good family. Like, they're like a really wholesome family.
And it's not like he was just doing graffiti. He was doing graffiti with a gang. Like, that's a bad path to go down. It wasn't like he was just tagging stuff like, oh, me and my buddies are tagging. It was like he's hanging out with a gang, the 110th Street gang, which is not a good name for a gang, but that's their name.
I mean, that's a standard kind of name, though.
I think it's a very weak name.
Many gangs have names that are just their street. That's like the thing, like the Fifth Avenue Boys or whatever. Like, that's just like a very common thing.
I think you're limiting yourself if you do that, gangs, because you can't go anywhere. You're stuck on that street now.
I mean, this is definitely not the greatest gang.
No.
This is not the greatest gang, I would say that, frankly. This is not a real high level. I mean, obviously Lonnie's going to take over this gang. That is obviously the story arc ahead of us. Yes. So this is not. So Lonnie follows his brother. His brother had left the house. He climbs out the fire escape. Lonnie follows him and finds him at the 110th Street hangout. And the brother's like, "How'd you find me?" He goes, "You're on the family plan. Dope." That was very funny. And then I'll start making fun of him. And he meets Big Donovan, who is the leader of the 110th Street Gang. He's a character from the comics. Okay. He's a Daredevil villain sometimes. So that's like a guy. They actually pulled the guy from like a really obscure guy from the comics to come deal with this. And so this whole thing, I kind of don't buy it. But I understand.
I'll stand in for my brother.
Yeah, I just don't buy it. Like, it is what it is, though. Like, it's not that big a deal. Like, it's showing a level of selflessness for Lonnie that feels character important, right? Like that this is the kind of guy, like he's going to do bad things, but only for the right reasons. And he's going to be torn up by it. The idea of Lonnie as the opposite of Peter Parker, a guy who's got a really good life, but who ends up having to do bad things as opposed to the guy who has the bad life and ends up doing good things, is pretty interesting, as mirrors. Like if you're going to do Tombstone, who's not a major Spider-Man villain, this is an interesting way to do it, to make him have more power, not like physically, but like emotionally.
Yes.
So he joins the gang. And meanwhile, the two people who got those, the case had mech augmentations in it, and they go and they rob a jewelry store, and one guy has feet augmentations and the lady has wrist augmentations, and these are also both characters from the comics, Speed Demon and Tarantula.
That's who they are. Okay, I was trying to figure it out. Okay.
Yeah. So Spider-Man shows up, and there's like, it's a really good scene. Like, there's a really good Spider-Man banter.
Yes,
this show's really good with the Spider-Man banter. Like, this show's really good.
There are two things the show has done really well in the 5 episodes we've seen. The banter, and also Spider-Man consistently puts saving people above stopping the villains.
Yep. And
I like that a lot.
That's what the really great bit about this scene is that as he's fighting them, he's never fought a superpower person before, is what it seems like, right? That's like kind of the vibe here.
Yeah.
And because like Butane had a suit, but like that was just flames throwing at him. Like that wasn't like
this guy's got super speed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, and my one complaint about the show is the show's a little bit iffy on the spider sense.
Yeah, so are the movies.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, probably the comics are too, if you really were to focus on it.
Yeah.
But I do feel like
it's like one step ahead of like the Jedi senses. Like it works. Like in Spider-Man's definitely works better. Like if he's really in danger, it kicks in, right? But like it also doesn't work sometimes. If, if the plot calls for it.
Right. Well, that's the thing, is that very often, especially in this scene, like I feel like a speed guy is somebody who the spider sense is very helpful against, because his whole thing is like coming up behind you, and then he can't do that if your spider sense is going up. We don't get the sense that's really happening because Peter gets his ass kicked, and he begins to realize. So he's helping everybody, but he gets his ass kicked real bad, and then Norman Osborn hacks into his phone and starts yelling at him over his headset.
He's like, God. I really like that. That made me laugh.
So he starts giving Pete some advice, and they figure out that the two of them are staying far apart from each other, and they realize that it's because their augmentations are interacting in some way. And so
that's not what they say.
What do they say?
They say he says, Norman says, you notice that they're keeping a distance from each other, and Peter goes, yes. And Norman goes, it's because they're not used to the augmentations. Well, I don't. What's the connection there? Like that doesn't make that doesn't fit. Like he should have just said like they must the augmentations must interfere with each other in some.
Because we see that previously, like we see that on screen, like where like they both start sparking to each other, like so that's obviously what's happening. Yeah, I guess maybe Norman isn't as smart as everybody thinks he is, huh?
No, he's just like, they don't know what they're doing. Like, I don't know.
Also true, but and so he is able to save everybody. There's a really great part in this where they're throwing cars around and shit, and there's a car that explodes, and there's fire, and there's a guy trapped inside his car, and Peter is like,
that's the next.
Is that next episode? Oh, yeah. Okay, that isn't this episode then. Okay. I'm getting my throwing. They throw cars around in this one too, don't they?
They throw cars around in this one, yeah.
That's why I'm confused.
They throw a car and he webs it.
He webs it before it crashes in everybody's heads. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And then she uppercuts him into the car that he's got webbed to the
very good.
In the air. Yeah.
He really gets his ass beat, like significantly beat, like very badly. He finally takes them down, and then he goes back and tells Norman, okay, I guess this makes sense. Like, you know, this is the one where he scares Norman, right? Where he jumps in and freaks Norman out.
Yes.
Yeah. And he's like, okay, I guess this makes sense. We should, in fact, work together. And that was the end of our first episode. It only took us 20 minutes to recap that. So,
off to a good start.
Then we have our next.
Late for work.
We start our next episode, and Peter Parker is getting absolutely wrecked by Dr. Whitman. Shittily wrecked. Paul F. Tompkins is a real bad dude here.
Yeah.
Because
Paul F. Tompkins says something that I don't think is socially acceptable anymore.
What is that?
He says that Peter has a lazy tongue, which when I was a kid, I had a lazy tongue. And as far as I know, that's not what it's called anymore. And I was really shocked when he said that. I was like, wow. That's not something you hear very often these days.
I think it's kind of funny. Like at the end of the thing, Dr. Connors like gives Whitman a really hard time. And but like they just let him fucking tear into Peter. They just let him humiliate Peter. And Peter is just like not good at giving a presentation. He's just nervous. Like he doesn't even get to start his presentation. Whitman's like, this is a piece of shit. You're a moron. Which again, I like that because I think that you need to have a good villainous authority figure. Yeah. He doesn't.
He's the JJJ right now.
Yeah, you need that. You need a guy who's giving him a hard time and like really giving him a hard time.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're either going to find out he's a heart of gold or he becomes a villain. I'm sure one of those two things will happen eventually. But in the meantime, it's nice. But it is very intense here. And then when Peter gets called up to the office, Norman Osborn again, and everybody's like, Jesus Christ, this guy's always hanging out with Norman Osborn. Amadeus Cho goes, and he has a whole rave set up for his presentation. So one assumes that Paul F. Tompkins likes that much better, right? That's got to be.
That would be my theory, unless that is too much.
Too much. Yeah, he can't. This guy can never be happy.
Yeah.
Peter goes upstairs and he's walking in the hallway and he's like kind of like nervous. And he bumps into Harry and they talk a little bit. And Peter's like, "Boy, I feel so out of place whenever I come up here." And Harry's like, "Well, if you're here, that's where you're supposed to be." We also see on the wall that Norman Osborn has met T'Chaka.
Yes.
T'Challa's dad. Did he exchange the Captain America for that?
Maybe it's like one of those ones that like it switches out every couple minutes.
Well, maybe because the Civil War has just started, and he was like, Captain America down right now.
No, that's what is that guy just died. T'Chaka, he just died.
Oh, he just died. So then he's putting it up there because it's like in memory. There you go.
Yeah.
Captain America is now a wanted man, and T'Chaka has just died. So that actually makes a lot of sense.
There you go.
He comes into the office and Norman Osborn is like, "Hey, I'm on the internet right now. Check out this crazy shit that's going on. You got to watch this YouTube video about the Sokovia Accords."
Have you heard about the turtle? 2 packs a day.
So this sets us in place of where the story is taking place and what is happening in the world around them.
That essentially right now, Peter should be in Germany. Yeah. That's what's happening right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he's not.
He's not. He is here instead dealing with all of this nonsense. So Norman has created some costumes for Peter. And every single one of these costumes are from the comics.
Yes.
And some of them are obviously worse than others. We start with his prodigy outfit, which is a cape, and he goes and tries to stop some criminals, and he gets the cape caught on a spire or something. Really good.
I like that he gets caught there, and the criminals, like one of them picks up like a pipe, and another one picks up a plank of wood, and he's like, "Oh, are you guys going to help me get out of this?" That made me laugh.
So good.
That was very good.
It's so good. Then we get another one, and it's the ricochet suit, and he's like flying, but he's having a really hard time controlling it. And Norman is very aggravated with Peter. He's like, "Just fucking lean into it, man. Like, just stop fighting it." And then they try another suit. This is the Dusk suit, and he scares the shit out of a little girl in the park.
Yes.
And the whole time Peter has his classic costume sketched. And he's like, this is, I think, what I should look like. And Norman's like, now that's lame as hell, bro. That is no cap. That is bad. Meanwhile, Pearl is hanging out with Lonnie, and things are going along nicely until he gets a call from Big Donovan. And Big Donovan, Big Donovan calls him back up to the to Harlem and demands that he go pick up some food for the gang. And he's like, he sends guys down to pick him up. He's like, it seems like it's harder to send guys down to pick him up than it is to send guys down the street to get the food. But this is obviously
the food is for a reason.
But yeah, it's a power move. Yeah. This is not an accident. This is they're doing a thing. But it is funny. Like if I was Lonnie, I'd be like, why didn't you send these fucking guys to get the food? Jesus Christ. This is much farther away.
I will say when Lonnie gets the food, I couldn't help but think like, I don't think that's enough food for everybody.
No, it's not. And he doesn't get the extra hot sauce.
He does not get the extra hot sauce.
I mean, he's a little freaked out because he walks into this restaurant and it's clearly the territory of the rival gang, the Scorpions.
Yes.
And he figures it out real quick and he's like, oh, this is not good. And so he gets the food. There is Camilla Black, who's a character also from the comics, who is there. And she's like, you know, hey, let Big Donovan know that he's going to be seeing us pretty soon. And then Lonnie gets chased all the way to the train. And he just gets on the train and manages to evade getting beat up.
There's something that happens here that I really liked.
What's that?
Is that when he starts running, he's got the food and he's holding it like you would like a normal like plastic bag, right? And once he realized that they're going to jump him and he starts running, he starts holding the food like a football. So he's got it like tucked into his chest.
Yeah.
I was like, that's a nice little character bit there.
No, it's good. He also uses his football skills in the Rumble too.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's also really, really good.
Yeah. I was really impressed by that. I was like, well, that's a nice little character bit that they put in there.
So he goes back to the hideout and Big Donovan is like, oh, good. Like, I'm glad that you had this experience. That's why we sent you out there. You're going to get to meet Matt Gargan, who runs this. He's a lunatic who runs this gang. And now they know your face. So now you need our protection because they know that you're with us. And now you can't leave us because they will fucking kill your ass. Meanwhile, back at Oscorp, Peter and Norman are talking. They've had so many failures with these costumes and concepts, and it just never works out. And it does seem like Norman's just not on the same page as Peter.
No,
like that's
Norman's like really does not like the Spider-Man aspect of it all.
No, he's like, why you gotta be Spider-Man? He says, Lily says, why you gotta be Spider-Man? Like,
yeah, he really wants him to be something else.
So he is like, I know that you can be like the next Avengers level guy. Like you're the real deal. And I know that you can do it. So he gets him now this, the white suit, right? This is the white suit now.
This is the white and blue. Yeah. The
Future Foundation. Yeah. So he goes out and he, gets involved with a gang, a bunch of Russians, all of whom are characters from the comics.
Yes.
Maybe one of them is not. The one girl with the punk rock hair maybe isn't. I'm not sure who she is.
I don't know.
But it's the civilian identities of the Chameleon. The guy is the father of the Rhino, although I suspect he's just going to be the Rhino on this program.
Looks like the Rhino.
Oh, I know. That character name is the Rhino's father.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the character who is a gender swap version of Unicorn from the comics. And they are robbing this thing, and they are like, they had this whole argument about like, we go quiet, we go loud. And the Rhino guy is like, let's go fucking loud. And when they come out after doing the robbery, they have all the cops in the city are there, and they get chased, and they're driving down like the FDR, getting chased by the cops. And then they, at one point, the woman who is going to become Unicorn just jumps out the back of the truck. She's like, okay, see you guys later.
I'm out.
Just fucks off. They're stealing money because they want to take it to the inventor. So they want to get augmentations too. So that's obviously also part of our ongoing storyline here, is the idea of somebody providing the criminal underworld with these augmentations.
Yeah. And this is when the big car pileup happens, is during this.
Okay, so this is the big car pileup. And so the part I like about this, he's saving people from the cars, and the car explodes, and he says a guy trapped in a car on the other side of the flames, and Spider-Man is like going to have to go through the flames to get the guy, and he goes, "Oh, this is going to hurt," and then he goes through, and he's not hurt at all. His costume is fireproof, and he goes, "I'm fireproof," and the guy inside the car goes, "Well, I'm not."
I'm not. Yep.
But what I like about it is that Peter thought he was going to get hurt.
Yes.
And he did it. Like, it was not, he had like a quick second to think about it and then just did it. Like, he's like, okay, I guess I'm going to get burnt right now.
What are you going to do?
And that's heroism, man. That's like real fucking heroism. I like that very much.
I like that this whole sequence is straight out of the Spider-Man video games.
Is it?
Now then you just come across like a car pile up and you're like, press triangle to open up the door and like pull the person out. And it was just that sequence. I was like, oh, there you go. That's
I have more than once failed that one.
Well, that's embarrassing for you.
Yeah, I know. It's really embarrassing.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't get myself in front of the spot right.
That I can understand.
Like, I was like,
there are points in those games where it's like, why is the hitbox so small?
It's tiny for some of that stuff. And especially opening a car door feels like something that the hitbox should be. Like, if I'm just standing there, that's a pretty reasonable hitbox. Like, getting the handle of the car. I do that in real life all the time. I mean, think about it. I do it all the time in real life. So he goes back to Oscorp. He's really happy. This was a really good thing. They all get arrested, those guys. He swings in the window and he immediately pulls off his mask like, "Hey, Norman, this is really great." And Norman's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Ixnay on the Eiderman spay.
I like it too, and there's Harry, and Harry goes, "You're Spider-Man," and Peter goes, "No, I'm not." No, I'm not. That made me laugh really hard.
Yeah, it's really good. I was very surprised by this. I was very, very surprised by this. Frankly. Yeah. They're being a little fast and loose with his secret identity.
Yeah, a lot of people know real quick.
Yeah, really quick, and I don't mind Norman knowing. I think that's an interesting storyline, and obviously in the comics, Norman finds out anyway, so that's like totally reasonable. But Harry knowing is interesting, and I don't know how much I like it or don't.
Okay.
I will talk about this, I guess, next episode. I don't know that I like him as the guy in the chair.
I don't know if I like him wearing all green like his dad. Like, be your own man, Harry.
Harry, put on some orange. If you want to do a hobgoblin, at least
some mustard or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like a little bit iffy on some of that stuff. Although the show, I think, so far has handled everything really well. So
it feels to me like the show is consistently being like, okay, what's in the comic? Let's do something a little different with it, right? Yeah. Like, or in the movies or whatever. Like we discussed before, like from like even before the show starts, it's a different reality than the MCU,
right?
But they set up the thing where it's like, hey, the school gets messed up. He goes to a different school.
Right.
He does not meet the same people.
Right.
Things are different for him now.
Yeah.
Like, and they consistently do that kind of thing throughout this, right? Like, there's something else that happens at some point in one of the episodes where it's like, oh, they're playing with this idea a little bit. Well, I guess the whole Rhino discussion that they have is like, oh, they're kind of goofing with that a little bit, right? Like messing around with that a little.
Yeah, I mean, the part of it is that they know that they have an audience who is going to be aware of the storylines and the characters and their arcs, and so they're pulling a couple of switcheroos on us and a couple of different things. They're changing some things up, and they're being playful. I think, by the end of episode 5, I was like, okay, I totally get why you don't want this to be in the MCU, because you would not be able to use any characters because you don't know what they're going to use in the future. And they're kind of burning through characters, even though they're really minor characters. You never know that somebody's going to say, well, I really wanted to do a Speed Demon story.
Sure.
Like James Cameron's like, I want to do the Speed Demon movie. They go, okay, fuck this. I guess that's too bad for this cartoon.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that gives them more leeway. Although I also appreciate that they're like, again, that they're playing within the iconography of the MCU. Like Matt Gargan looks like Michael Mando.
Yeah.
Like that. And that's actually nice because I never really fully understood why at the end of that movie in the post-credit scene, Scorpion had a scorpion tattoo on his neck and was in prison and it was like a gangster. I was like, what the fuck?
He's got it when you see him earlier in the movie. He's got it. Yeah.
Wait, he's in it earlier?
Yeah.
When is he in it earlier?
And the ferry scene. That's who they're meeting in the ferry scene to to buy stuff
Oh
or
yeah,
to
that's
sell stuff
right.
to. It's him and his boys.
That's right. So I like that this picks that up and gives a little bit more depth to it, because I think that was the thing I was like kind of like
Yeah.
about in the movies. Anyway, the next
It's great
episode.
because in the movie he walks up and he's like, "I'm being completely wasted. I'm such a good actor." And now Derek knows it because he didn't know before. He didn't watch Better Call Saul before, but now he knows.
I'm reading Alan Sepinwall did a Better Call Saul book, and
Yeah.
it's mostly like a collection of his weekly write-ups of the show. And it's very interesting to read his weekly write-ups. I kind of don't think this is a great format for a book,
Okay.
because when you're reading some of his early stuff in it, like season 2, he's like, because he doesn't know what's happening, he can't put anything in context because he's writing it the week it came out, right?
Yeah.
But what's funny is to watch him go from never mentioning Nacho ever to when we get to season 5, he's like, Nacho's the best character on the show. Nacho's amazing. Like, I mean, which is kind of the journey of watching the show, sort of like a little bit.
I feel like well before season 5, I was feeling that he's pretty important early on.
But it's crazy. So he publishes this book, which is a collection of all these essays that he wrote at the time, and so many of them end with, "And is this the week that Jimmy has finally become Saul?" And it's like, I get it when you're writing it weekly. I get that.
Yeah.
Like, I totally get that. But like when you put the book together, like trim some of that shit. Like just cut it out, man. Like we don't need to have the historical record of your guesses from 12 years ago or whatever. But it's interesting. He has really good insight and some really interesting. And then he also has some interviews that he conducted at the time that's in the book too. So that's all also very interesting. One of the things that from the book is like, we talked about this before, but like how much they just made it up as they went along, like how much shit they just did not know. They, you know, when you watch the show, you can kind of tell they thought season 1 was going to end with him being Saul Goodman.
Yeah.
That's what they figured they were going to do. And then they got halfway through, like, no, we can't do that. We can't get rid of this character, Jimmy. He's great. So anyway, this is not that podcast. We catch up with Mila, who is...
That'll be our next podcast, Better Pod Saul.
Mila goes and finds the inventor who they were trying to get to. And it turns out the inventor is none other than Dr. Otto Octavius.
Wearing his classic yellow and green.
Classic outfit with his bad haircut. His assistant is probably a character named Leapfrog.
Oh, is that who that is? Okay.
That is almost certainly who that assistant is. So then the next episode opens with her in Otto's warehouse, and she's like, this place is disgusting. Like, what? This is for losers. And I'm watching and I'm like, what the fuck? Why is Dr. Octopus taking this? This is crazy to me. Like, this is not this character. And I was like, this is the first time I felt like, oh, maybe they don't get it. Like, maybe they fucked this up. Dr. Octopus should not be this like fawning. And he gives her the helmet, which is the unicorn helmet, which lets her like be able to like analyze attack patterns, but also shoot a laser out of the top of her head. And that's all that she cares about is the laser. She's like, yeah, whatever, the laser. That's what I really care about. And then as soon as she leaves, he's like, this fucking woman, I hate her fucking guts.
He says, disinfect everything.
And I was like, oh, you do get Dr. Octopus. Because I was like, honestly, like, what is going on with this introduction of him? Because he really is doing like, welcome to my warehouse. We have some stuff over here for you. That'd be really nice. And then he is just so fucking angry. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's Doc Ock. He's bitter as shit and he hates everybody. Like, that's really.
That was good. That was good.
Yeah. And we find out that he hates Norman Osborn. And he has a master plan. He's going to show everybody he's better than everybody. Yes. And then again, that's super Dr. Octopus. Like, I'm the fucking best guy. Like, how dare you?
Dr. Octopus, I think of every supervillain ever created, he has my favorite origin, bar none. Because he's a scientist who all the other scientists are like, look at that fucking nerd. And that is amazing to me. That is his origin. It is. They're all goofing on him. Like, look at this nerd. He made a bunch of extra arms. What a loser. Like, you're all scientists. You should be like, that's amazing. But no, they're like, he sucks.
He sucks. This guy sucks.
I love it. When I was a kid, first time I read that story, I was like, it's amazing. This guy is like, the nerds make fun of him for being too nerdy. That's amazing.
So we then cut to Harry and Peter, and Harry is joining the team. Norman Osborn's too busy. He can't keep being the guy in the chair. And so he passes the torch on to Harry. Harry's going to be the guy in the chair. Now, the thing is, the reason why I don't like this is because in the next scene, Harry drives Peter to school, and Nico sees that, and everybody's really impressed that he's getting out of Harry Osborn's car. He doesn't understand why everybody cares.
Yeah.
And she tells him he's got 1 million followers on Instagram. He's a big influencer. And now maybe this is my bias speaking, but I don't feel like an influencer wants to be the guy in the chair. I feel like that the personality type inherently wants to be the guy in front.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I also feel like an influencer doesn't have a good work-life balance. And so the odds of Harry doing an Instagram or TikTok as the guy in the chair feels very high to me, like very, very high.
Oh, for sure.
And I just don't feel like that's his job. He really wants the job, though. Like, he fucking is excited to have the job.
He's psyched about it. Yeah.
I mean, the premise here is he has no friends. He's just so busy being a rich influencer boy that he has no connection to anybody.
Yeah. And he's homeschooled and like, yeah.
And Nico's jealous because she's already seeing Peter begin to slip away because he stiffed her.
Nico breaks down the current state of American society real quick, where she says, "Oh, he's a born rich boy whose daddy's going to take care of him, and in 20 years he's gonna get into politics because he can't lose. He's got too much money." And it's like, well, here we are. Nico called it.
Yeah, she did call it. But I like when Peter's like, "Wait, why do you follow this guy if you hate him so much?" She's like, "I follow him ironically." Yes. And honestly, I hate follow people on social media, so I get it. I truly get it.
Me and Peter both living outside of the norms because I don't hate follow anybody, and I don't know who any influencers are, so I'd be lost.
You're so
I also
lucky.
would not have known. Yeah.
You're so lucky. Knowing about influencers is just such a nightmare. They are the worst people alive, and maybe not. I mean, like, Elon Musk is currently in FEMA, so maybe they're not the worst people alive. They're pretty bad though, and the stuff it's just awful. Anyway, but that's the thing with him. I just kind of don't fully buy the guy in the chair thing for him. I just don't fully get it. So they do some guy in the chair shit. Well, actually, before that, after school, Peter tells Nico that he bought tickets to the sequel to the worst movie ever made.
Yeah,
I didn't recognize the title, and it was like a riff on
Italian?
something. Yeah, right? And I couldn't tell if it was a joke on something that I just didn't recognize. They also have a conversation about the Sokovia Accords because Pete is a huge Captain America dork. And so she's like, "How you feeling about your boy Captain America being a fucking criminal?"
Well, I like that she has a good breakdown of it where she's like, I don't like Iron Man because he's a rich guy and that sucks. But I kind of feel like Captain America's wrong that these superpowered beings should not have some kind of like people that they answer to. And I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. Like a good back and forth she's having.
No, it's good. I mean, obviously, it's interesting because obviously she's like, imagine if you had powers and you just destroyed things in the city. And he's like, boy, imagine something as crazy as that. I got to tell you, they're really loose with his identity. And I feel very bad for Nico because quite clearly when she finds out, she's going to be crushed because they're really playing up how important Peter is to her.
Yeah.
And not romantically, just like as a person, the idea who's keeping the secret from her is going to really hurt. As opposed to like Ned, when Ned found out, I was like, dude, why didn't you tell me? Like, but it's like not that thing.
Well, also Ned was like the first to find out.
Right.
Like, I mean, obviously Tony found out before, but like Ned finds out. And then after that, that's when May finds out and then MJ finds out. Right. So like, it wasn't like he was keeping it from like everyone knew except you, Ned. Right. It was like,
yeah, this is turning into a thing where everybody knows about Nico, slowly but surely. So they get tickets to this movie and then he goes off to do Spider-Man stuff and he's like chatting with Harry. They're both big Captain America fans, so they really bond over that. They start becoming really, really good friends, especially because Harry agrees that the suit maybe is a little too boring and it could use some color, which is what Peter really, really wants. Yeah. Meanwhile, Unicorn goes and breaks her friends out of jail using her power horn. And again, Unicorn's a character from the comics. It's a male character in the comics, but I do think like I don't complain about gender swaps, But if you're going to complain about gender swaps, I do think making the character named Unicorn a woman is actually makes a little bit more sense. It's like a weird name for a guy. I don't know. I mean, like, I might be being a gender essentialist here, but like, it's a weird name for a guy.
Sure. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When
was Unicorn created?
Oh, like in the 70s or something like that.
I mean, that makes it even weirder. Or maybe not. I don't know.
No, I think that shit's really weird. I think there's like I feel like Unicorn was created at the time when like, maybe late 60s when like a lot of like mystic fairy tale mythology was like hot. You know what I mean? Like, so the idea of the unicorn, and also they weren't really introducing
running out of animals.
animals. So she breaks her team out of prison.
You already created armadillo. What more do you want from me?
The cops show up and she starts fighting the cops, and the guys are like, "Let's get the fuck out of here! Like, what are you doing?"
This is the one moment of the show so far where I feel like they're a little too goofy with like Spider-Man lore, because they're all the four Russians are sitting there and they're like, oh, your helmet, it's like a rhino, and she's like, no, it's like a unicorn. Yeah. And it's like, we don't need that conversation. It's fine.
I mean, I do wonder if that was because they assumed
prequelitis, you know.
I wonder if they assumed that some audience members would think that she was going to be the Rhino.
Sure.
Because I think Unicorn is really like a super obscure
Unicorn
character.
is obscure. Yeah.
So you give somebody a helmet that has a horn on it and it's a Spider-Man story, your thought is like, wait, they made the Rhino a girl and she's not gigantic? And then it's like, no, actually this is other super obscure character.
And that guy next to her who's got rhino eyes isn't the Rhino?
He is going to be the Rhino quite clearly. Meanwhile, uptown, these are happening like around the same time, I think, right? Like we're like cutting back and forth between Lonnie and Peter, more or less.
Yeah.
Lonnie and the gang have to go fight the Scorpions. The Scorpions have come on their territory.
Lonnie's got to leave football practice.
Yes, Lonnie's leave football practice. The whole thing with his coach, where the coach's like, "What's up, dude? Like, you've just not been coming to practice. You've not been working hard." And Lonnie's like, "I got personal problems." And the coach's like, "I get it, but like, you got to focus." And then he's like, "If you don't stop fucking up, I'm going to have to cut you from the team." And so they come to practice and he gets called up and he has to go. So he has to leave it behind. He has to leave Pearl and school behind and the team behind. And then so the Scorpions are on the 110th Street gang's turf, and we get to meet Matt Gargan, who shows up.
This made me laugh too.
What? Why?
Is that Lonnie and the guy who drove him there walk up, and Big Donovan's like, "Good, you're here. We can get started." And then you see Scorpion's gang is on the other side. So like, they all showed up to like, can we wait like 5 minutes? We got a guy who's running a little late. And
we got a superstar on the way. We gotta.
Yeah, no, that's cool. We can hang out for a couple of minutes. That's cool. That's cool.
That's like, well, I think that's nice though. There's like a little bit of chivalry in the gang war.
Also, I will point out that Scorpion's gang more progressive than the 110th Street.
Very mixed. Yeah.
Not just mixed, because both are mixed. Scorpion's gang has 2 women. Nothing going on with the 110. They don't have.
Well, we don't know how everybody in the 110 identifies, so
that's true.
We might find out that there are women on that gang.
That's true. I shouldn't speak that way.
Shouldn't assume.
I've learned my lesson.
Actually, this show is so woke that I actually believe that that's actually plausible. That one of the 110 gang will be trans. Like it seems this show is hyper woke, frankly.
Yeah.
And I think in a good way. I don't mind it. I think it's great. I think that one of the things they talked about when they were debuting the show was they wanted to make it feel like an urban show today.
Yeah.
You know, because the world of Spider-Man is of 1962. You know what I mean? Like so much of it is. And so they're like, that's just not what the world's like now.
That's not what Queens is like now.
I mean, it never was, frankly, but
I mean, like where he lived in Flushing, Queens was pretty white.
He lived in Forest Hills. It was actually super white in Forest Hills. Today, Forest Hills is not white.
No.
The thing I've always said that if you were going to reboot Spider-Man and you were going to go diverse, he would have to be Asian.
Yes.
I mean, for both the queens of it and sort of like the nerd and school of it and stuff like that, he had, and like the doting parent figures and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Not to be like stereotypical, but that's going to hit pretty squarely in the Asian side of things. And especially if he still lived from Forest Hills, like that's a very Asian area right now.
Yeah.
But that's not, they've kept Spider-Man a white boy all along.
They just created a whole different.
They created a whole different guy to make him not white. It's pretty impressive, honestly.
Like, we're not changing Peter. Here's Miles.
It's actually pretty impressive. So we have our gang fight. Matt Gargan shows up, and it's obviously the Matt Gargan from the Spider-Man movie. And we have a gang fight, and Lonnie doesn't really want to fight. Like, he's just like kind of like trying not to fight, like, is what the deal is. But then he starts doing like a defensive run, knocking guys down, and he sees that Big Donovan's about to get killed. That Matt Gargan's going to kill Big Donovan, and he comes in and he saves Big Donovan's life, and he gets stabbed in the process.
Yes,
the fight scene's fine. They didn't really put that much effort into it.
No, and the knife that Matt Gargan has. Looks like a clam shucking knife. So I was a little confused by that. I was like, what's going on here? Like,
turns out his day job is a seafood restaurant, and actually he just showed up from his shift.
Yeah. I was like, I was a little confused by that. I was like, there is a part of me watching this like, there's no way nobody would not have a gun. Like, these are two gangs meeting.
That's what's funny is that like, it has that big West Side Story feeling of like, okay, we're going to accept these guys are all going to fight with chains and fists. I guess we'll accept it. But it doesn't necessarily feel right. But you know what? It's heightened. There's a Spider-Man. We can swallow this, right? Like,
yeah.
So he saves Big Donovan's life. Meanwhile, Unicorn doesn't want to stop fighting the police. She's having a great time. She's the time of her fucking life.
She's having a ball.
And everybody, the rest of her guys, like, we got to get the fuck out of here because we're going to get captured again. And she's like, run away if you want. I'm going to stay here and fuck people up. And so they do take off, and then Spider-Man shows up, and they fight for a while, and she fucks Spider-Man. So that's a big running thing here in this program, is that Spider-Man does get his ass kicked quite regularly.
Yeah.
And finally it turns into a thing where she realizes that Spider-Man is going to save civilians. That's what she figures this out. And then when the guy who's going to become Rhino shows back up, and it's like, let's just fucking go, like, just forget it, like, leave it be. She realizes that she can defeat Spider-Man and get away by charging her horn all the way up and shooting her buddy. And that will take Spider-Man out. In fact, he does jump in front of the blast, and it does feel like it should have killed him. It is pretty intense. He gets much better very fast.
There's a moment though I do want to go back to that I really like, because she's attacking like civilians, and he saves the civilians, and she beats him up, and we see all the civilians run away, and she's like, now I will destroy you or whatever, and she goes to punch him, and he puts his hand up, he stops her punch, and he's like, well, now that everyone's gone, let's get this done with.
Yeah,
and
now I can stop holding back. That. Yeah, because nobody's going to get hurt if I.
No one's going to get hurt. Now I can go. I can party with you. And she's shot. She's like, "Oh no!"
That's really good.
That I really like that. Like, he's getting beat up, but he's getting beat up because he's holding back, because he's trying to make sure no civilians get hurt.
Yeah.
I was like, that's great. That's great.
It's really good
character stuff.
It's really good. Yeah. Thanks for calling that out. Yeah. So he takes the blast for the Rhino, and the Rhino's like, you gonna fucking kill me like, to get away from this guy? And she's like, shut the fuck up. And so Rhino ends up helping her stop the Unicorn, and he's like, I owed you this one. Yeah. He takes off her helmet, pops right off. He says, I owe you for this. You saved my life, so I owe you, but next time we meet, it will not be this friendly. And then Peter realizes that he is late for his movie. And so he has to go. He shows up. Nico, it's like at the exact moment. He said, meet at 7. And it is 7. He shows up, and Nico's pretty excited. And then
she's a little, I'm going to say, a little too much on, like, it's 7:01. And she's like, where is he? It's like, it's 7:01, lady.
I do not agree with that.
You got to calm down a little bit.
No, because here's the deal. They're going in an art house theater. This is not assigned seating. Showtime is 7.
No, they were going to meet at 7. So I would think showtime is like 7:30. That'd be my guess.
That would make more sense. Because
even when they go in, he's like, hey, I'm going to go get snacks. Like, you don't show up at the time the movie's going to start.
But people in television shows do that kind of shit all the time.
That's true.
That is like a very common. It's an 8:00 movie. It's 7:58. We can make it. Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, what? I guess if you're going to an AMC, 20 minutes.
You got another 30 hours. You got a whole day.
You could go get dinner. Yeah. Go get dinner, and then but they're not. They're going to an art house. They specify that it's an art house.
Yeah.
And that's probably going to start fairly on time. It's going to have like probably previews of coming movies or whatever, or like a
Like 2
trailer
or
reel.
3. They'll have a quick 2 or 3 thing and be like, yeah,
And maybe an intro, like, "Hey guys, welcome to the
Yeah.
downtown cinema." But like, yeah,
we appreciate your patronage.
But he brings Harry along.
Yes.
And Nico's not happy about it. I think part of the reason why she's getting pretty antsy at 701 is because she does have this feeling that Peter is abandoning her.
Yeah.
And so the minute that he's late, it starts to carry that feeling of like, Jesus, this fucking guy, he is like,
Yeah.
I can't rely on him anymore.
I imagine at some point we're going to learn more about her past. And maybe she has abandonment issues.
She holds that pendant around her neck.
Yeah.
Very, very obviously. So we're going to, as we know that she's a superpower person. The voice actress for this has played Nico in pretty much everything.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's the same actress. Yeah.
She did the Midnight Suns game, right? Yeah.
And it turns out that Harry's pretty cool, and Harry's like pretty much into this movie. He's pretty excited about it. So they go into the movies. We cut back to the 110th Street warehouse, and Big Donovan is psyched about Lonnie. And he's like, now I finally trust you. Like, you took a knife from me. I can totally trust you. And he keeps calling him Superstar. That's been the name that he's been using. And Lonnie's like, stop calling me fucking Superstar. I hate it. And so they come up.
This also upsets me. If
I
you're
don't
going to
like
have that be of it, I would have called him Super Pro. I would have just done that.
They don't own that.
But you're not using the full name.
Yeah, but the NFL's very litigious.
Yeah.
He should have been using a more demeaning name than Superstar, because Superstar is actually a pretty good name for a gang guy. That's a pretty good name. That's not a bad name. That's like a character in the Warriors we named Superstar.
Unless it's like, I don't remember what year the movie came out, but it's the same year as the Molly Shannon Superstar movie came out.
This is not the same year as that.
And then you're like goofing at him, be like, "Oh, you're like that? You're gonna smell your armpits all day."
They talk about how he laid out Matt Gargan, and so they come up with a new nickname for him. They settle on Tombstone, and Lonnie likes that. I don't like it.
It doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make a lick of sense.
The first guy is like, we should call him Gravedigger. It's like, well,
that makes so much more sense.
I guess, but he didn't kill anybody.
But Tombstone's also a killing guy thing.
Yeah, neither name makes sense. Like Tombstone, it feels to me like Big Don is like, I want to name him. Fuck you, don't get to name him. I'm in charge. So like when that guy's like Gravedigger, and everyone's like, yeah, Gravedigger. He's like, no, I'm in charge. Tombstone.
Like, this is my job.
Pizza.
Don't take this from me, man. Like, let me have this. It's like it was between Tombstone and Red Baron, so we're gonna go with Tombstone today. What do they call him? DiGiorno.
Oh my God.
It's not delivery. It's DiGiorno. He's gonna fuck you up. But the reason why I don't like that, I don't mind that he's called Tombstone. I don't mind that he is Tombstone. But the name Tombstone for the character in the comics is because he's a big albino guy.
Yeah,
and he looks like a tombstone. Like that's the premise. Like and there's not even like, I mean, this is stupid, and this should not have happened in the show. But like, it's not even like he got covered in flour and like then stabbed him or saved the Big Don, and everybody goes, "You look like a big tombstone standing over him." Like even that would have been like, you know what I mean? Like, and again, you can't have. It's so stupid that he would have flour fall on his head. But I just don't buy Tombstone. It just doesn't make a ton of sense.
No, it does. It makes absolutely no sense. The whole much like the thing where like you're like a rhino. No, I'm the unicorn. That's what this scene felt like that too. Where it's like, well, we got to get to his name somehow.
Yeah,
I guess we'll go with that. And it should be his football name.
You're right. That should be. What if it was like Big Don was like, look at those big fucking teeth in your head. They're like tombstones. And then
go with that. Yeah.
Go with that. They call them tombstones. You got these big chompers.
Yeah. Go with that. Something.
All right. That's the 3 episodes that have been released so far. What'd you think of these 3 episodes?
They're great. This is a very good show.
This is a really good show.
This is a very good show. I'm really enjoying this show.
And like the fact that there's 3 seasons makes me really happy.
Yes.
And they know they have 3 seasons makes me happy because they can kind of plot things out a little bit. And that's really cool.
One thing I hope they plot out for seasons 2 and 3 is don't do like 3 episodes in a day, because this is very hard for me.
This is, well, you know,
I gotta watch these twice. That's
3 hours.
That's 3 hours of my life, and then
it's 3 hours. Yeah, it's 3 solid hours. Yeah,
break.
That's tough. No, I do agree with that. It is, although on some level, I am very happy there's another episode waiting. When I finish an episode, I go, oh, cool. And I go, I'll watch this tomorrow, and then I go, no, I'm going to watch it now.
And I will say that these 3 episodes felt like one story. Like where it
100%.
ends, it's like, okay, that's the end of this story.
But they also feel like episodes too, though.
They do, yeah. Like I wouldn't be sitting there upset like if it ended and I had to wait a week. But the stop point felt like, okay, this is the conclusion of this story.
Right.
And now we're gonna move into the next story.
Right.
Yeah. So that worked out well.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I like the introduction of Doc Ock as the maybe potentially seasoned villain.
Yeah.
I'm guessing is going to be the deal.
I'm not a big fan of all the villains are getting like tech from one person kind of stuff. I'm not a big fan of that kind of thing in stories. I find that boring. You know.
I don't fully disagree. However, I mean, it might be different when we start doing like main characters, but like I don't mind that like Spidey dork villains are there as the table setting for Doc Ock, like to establish part of why Doc Ock's a big deal.
No, yeah, I see what you're saying, but what I mean is like, all right, if you're gonna do Speed Demon, give him the full Speed Demon costume. Like, go all out. Don't be like, oh, I got these, boots.
Well, I do hope that obviously part of this stuff. I'm very curious when in the process they decided to make it not MCU.
Yeah.
Like what point? Because obviously, like Norman Osborn's in it, and he's a major character, so that had to have been something after, because we know that Norman Osborn's not in the MCU. Although it's a bummer because Coleman Domingo would be an incredible live action Norman Osborn.
Yeah.
But I wonder if some of these character designs and concepts were being kicked around when it was still the MCU. And so they couldn't go as big because the MCU didn't go as big.
Yeah.
And now that they are creating the show out of the shadow fully of the MCU, they can go, fuck it, give this guy a full costume. Because Speed Demon in the MCU would have had, especially at that point, Captain America Civil War would have had boots. That's all he had was boots. And like a tactical suit. Like he would not have a Speed Demon costume. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's, but I'm saying that when in the development, they were still trapped in that aesthetic. But now that they're free of that, as development moves forward, I hope that they start getting a little, because I agree with you. Although the fact that Doc Ock is in his classic Doc Ock outfit.
Yeah, he's wearing the yellow and green. Yeah.
And it's a dopey outfit. Like I love it, but it is a dopey outfit. And the fact that they kept it is really, really nice. I like that a lot. He looks like Doc Ock. I mean, he had the haircut and the glasses and everything.
He is a ditto Doc Ock, right?
Yeah,
like
100%.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I would like to see these characters be a little bit more comic booky, but I think we might get to that.
Yeah.
And again, I'm also going to cut them some slack because again, I just don't know when in the development process they decided to not be in the MCU.
Yeah.
So, is there a good reason to redesign Speed Demon because you decided to make it not in the MCU? No, not really. Like just,
I mean, I would love to read whatever scripts or see any concept art that they had for when this was Spider-Man freshman year, and see how what the differences are.
I bet there's not that much difference because I mean, again, the characters they're using, Unicorn, Speed Demon, Tarantula, these are such low-level characters that they probably did feel fairly confident.
I mean, I'm talking about overall, I can't imagine in their original plans there's going to be an episode where Peter's trying different costumes that Tony made.
Why not? That's 100% a thing that would definitely happen
because he's already got his costume.
He gets that one costume for Civil War, but that would be if you were having this take place.
But what I'm saying is, we know after Civil War, Peter doesn't talk to Tony again. We because Civil War ends, we pick up with No Way Home or Homecoming, and we see that for months he does not talk. Tony and him don't talk, and when they do talk, it's a quick thing, and then Tony shows up again later on. He's hanging out mainly calling Happy, who's not answering either. He's just off doing his own stuff, and he's got the one costume. So it had to be if it was going to be in the MCU, it would have to fit into that stuff, right?
No, it would that story would take place in between meeting Tony and Civil War. So that story takes place during Civil War in this cartoon. But if you were to do it in the MCU, you would just have to move the timeline up a couple of days. So that he's getting they're trying all these costumes, and then they finally end up with the Spider-Man costume in time for Civil War.
That doesn't work either.
Why not?
Because we see in No Way Home, we see when he gets his costume revealed to him. Or I'm sorry, in Homecoming, we see him being like, "What are you talking about? I'm in my costume." He's wearing his sweatpants costume, and Happy's no, in this room, and he opens up the thing, and the costume's in there. So You know, and I got the feeling that freshman year was before Tony showed up.
That would make a lot of sense. Yeah.
You know, that he has the powers, and here's like the 6 months or whatever of him doing stuff before Tony shows up.
I mean, that makes sense too. Yeah. I mean, I guess, someday I think we'll probably get some of that background, behind the scenes. I would like to know how that all worked out.
Yeah.
I think it worked out for the best. I think the show.
Oh no, I think it's very smart to just disconnect it. I think that's a very smart call.
Then to keep the aesthetic so that it feels like familiar and stuff like that. I think that's a really, really interesting way to do it.
Yeah. No, I agree. So. And I guess originally it was going to be Jessica Jones instead of Nico.
Mm-hmm. That was their original thought. Yeah.
So that's interesting too. You know,
but Peter could have had anal sex.
I guess that could have been part of the story.
Now, for those of you,
it's very weird that this 20-something-year-old lady is hanging out in high school.
For those of you at home that don't know, when the Jessica Jones comic started, which introduced this character, she was Alias. She was introduced having sex with Luke Cage, and they're having sex doggy style. He's hitting it from behind, and the dorks on the internet assume that meant they were having anal sex because there was a world of virgins. And so people got like up in arms that there was like, as if like having a page of opening with these two characters having sex isn't like kind of like in your face enough. They're like, they're having anal sex. And that was not the case. That was not the deal. So, but that's the origin of that joke is. That's like 20 years ago already, isn't it?
It's older than that, I think.
Oh my God. It's crazy.
I feel like I was in high school when that came out.
Fuck.
Or in college. I was not high school. I think I was like freshman in college when that happened.
I was working for the nonprofit when that came out. So that might have been right at the end of the 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
Jesus God. A couple of old dudes over here talking about a Spider-Man cartoon.
Alias Jessica Jones, because they wouldn't let him use Spider-Woman.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah,
I know. Yeah. All right, we're back again next week with the next 3 episodes of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, and then they're going to give us a break and only do 2 episodes a week after that.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and that'll be the end of the show.
Oh,
and then we're going to, I think, roll pretty quickly into Daredevil. It has to be better than the original show. It's like so grounded.
I don't. That's.
It's so grounded that you don't have to worry about getting electrocuted. That's how grounded it is.
He doesn't even. You thought he didn't wear a costume a lot in the old show. He's actually just a blind guy in the show. That's it. He's just a blind lawyer.
All right. We will see you guys again next week. Until then, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be safe, may you be well, but most of all, may you remain a true believer.